Wife keeps the thermostat on 60.
Guess I'm used to too many Zoom court appearances, John, where the judges yell at you if you don't have your coat on. So,
Is they really?
no, I don't know.
Yeah,
Guess we'll find out.
Okay, we're ready to go. We're live on recording and YouTube.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday morning. I would like to call to order the Judiciary Committee meeting or Judiciary Committee public hearing first for Friday, February 25th, 2020. Senator Winfield, I know, will be joining us very shortly. In the meantime, any remarks from the ranking members?
No, but good morning. Thank you.
A lot of snow up here. Happy that we're Zooming today.
Yes, it's interesting. One of the advantages of having gone to this remote format is a day like today, we probably would have had to cancel and reschedule. So
Exactly.
nice that we can actually get this going.
87 here, just so that you know.
Thank you, Representative Fishbein, dialing in from Florida. We will move on, thankfully, to item number 3 on our agenda. So we're going to start with our nominations for review to be a judge of the Appellate Court. First up, I have the Honorable Elliot D. Prescott of West Hartford. Judge Prescott, how are you, sir?
Good morning.
Good morning. If you might raise your right hand for me. Gotta see you. Let me see if I can see you. Oh, Senator Winfield is with us. Good morning, Senator. Judge Prescott, do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or in a penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. Thank you, Judge. If you have an opening statement for us, please go ahead and give it at this time.
Co-chair Senator Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, and ranking members Senator Kissel and Representative Fishbein, and other distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee. It's my distinct honor and privilege to appear before you today as you consider my nomination for a second 8-year term as a judge of the Appellate Court. I also want to thank Governor Lamont for this nomination and the confidence he has placed in me. I've been a judge for almost 18 years and have treasured every assignment I have had. I thoroughly enjoy and am challenged by my work on the Appellate Court. I am blessed by the collegiality of my colleagues, impressed by the quality and the timeliness of the work being done on the court, and am appreciative of the dedication of the law clerks and other staff who are critical to the work that we do. I want to express a particular debt of gratitude to my permanent law clerk, Rick Lyford, for his wise counsel and support. In addition to my work on the Appellate Court, I currently serve as the co-chair of the Advisory Committee on the Appellate Rules and am a member of the Evidence Oversight Committee. I am also the author of 2 legal treatises, one on Connecticut appellate practice and procedure, and the other on the law of evidence in Connecticut. I've also served for approximately 13 years as an adjunct professor of law at the University of Connecticut School of Law. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding my nomination.
Thank you, Judge Prescott. I have Senator Winfield. I have Senator Kissel and Representative Fishbein. Let's go Senator Kissel, then Representative Fishbein.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Your Honor, and congratulations on your renomination.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, I just had a question. I have a colleague who's state senator. She had an idea regarding rules of evidence. We discussed it amongst the leadership of this committee, and very aptly, Representative Staffstrom, the co-chair, indicated it probably would best go before the Rules Committee. You had indicated you have some connection with that and experience with that. How would I instruct my colleague to put that idea, which was brought to her by a state's attorney, regarding getting in like cell phone evidence? How would that go before you folks?
Sure. So as you may remember, Senator Kissel, in 2014, the legislature adopted a statute that specifically authorized the Supreme Court, to the extent that that was necessary, to adopt the Code of Evidence. So if we're talking about an evidentiary rule, the actual provision would be adopted by the Supreme Court. And there is a evidence oversight committee, of which I am a member of, that make recommendations to the Supreme Court regarding whether the rules should be amended and how they should be amended. So Justice Mullins is the chair of that committee. And so what I would recommend, that if there's a specific proposal that you're interested in having the court consider, that that you or your colleague write a letter to Justice Mullins, and it will be placed on the agenda for the Evidence Oversight Committee.
Well, that's fabulous information. I very much appreciate it. I know it's not directly bearing on your renomination, but since I had you in front of me, I figured I'd take advantage of it. But I've heard nothing but good things, and I think it's also noteworthy. Just like I always acknowledge my legislative aide, Kate McAvoy, as well as all the other support staff that allow me to do the job I do. I thought it was really telling that you thanked your clerk, because we can't do this alone. So congratulations, Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kessel.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Judge. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
Judge, I'm looking at your questionnaire, and in particular, and I don't know, do you have it in front of you?
I filled out 2 questionnaires for the General Assembly, one for my reappointment nomination to the Superior Court and one to the Appellate Court. So I assume you're referring to the Appellate Court one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have it.
You have that. Okay. In particular, question number 3 asks you about interpretation of the Constitution. And just, for the record, I'm going to read the question and your answer. And, I just wanted to dive into, your answer. So the question is, how do you feel about the statement that judges should interpret the Constitution to enforce the original intent of the drafters? Do you believe that the interpretation of the Constitution must evolve with history? And your answer is, the Constitution was drafted using intentionally broad terms. The original intent of those terms is but one factor that a court should consider in resolving constitutional questions. So I sort of see the two to be in conflict a bit. And I don't know that they actually answer the question. So if I divide it up and we deal with broad terms, can you give me a provision of the Connecticut Constitution you think was intentionally drafted broadly?
Well, both the federal Constitution and our state Constitution use very broad terms like due process and equal protection of the law, cruel and unusual punishment. Those are very, very broad terms, and there's no specificity about what they mean. There's a historical context, of course, in which those terms were employed, but they are broad. And, I think the best example is the provision on cruel and unusual punishment. Our courts have actually said that phrase must be interpreted in terms of evolving standards of normalcy and decency. And so while the original intent of those who use those terms is certainly important in understanding its meaning, it is just the beginning place of the analysis, in my view.
So then you would agree with the statement that the Constitution, both federally as well as state, is a evolving, ever-changing document?
Well, I don't think the document itself changes unless, of course, it's amended. But as a judge on an intermediate appellate court, I have to interpret those provisions and then the binding authority from other courts that's on me as to what those terms mean.
Yeah, I understand that. Legally you are required to do that. Just trying to wrap my arms around this answer. So, I'm going to defer at this point, but thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity, and congratulations, Judge, on your reappointment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative. Further questions or comments from the committee? Further questions or comments from the committee? If not, Judge Prescott, congratulations on your renomination, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we will turn to renominations to the Superior Court bench. We will start with the Honorable Leo V. Diana of Manchester. Judge Diana? With us?
Morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. If you might raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. If you have an opening statement, go ahead and make it.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Chairman Winfield, Chairman Staffstrom, Vice Chairman Blumenthal, Ranking Members Kissel and Fishbein, and distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today on this virtual platform. I'd like to thank the governor for nominating me to a second term as a judge of the Superior Court. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of the state of Connecticut. I've been a judge since April 2014. My first assignment was to the Judicial District of Middlesex at GA9. Thereafter, in September of 2015, I was assigned to the Family Division for the Judicial District of New London at Norwich. In September 2017, I was assigned to the Regional Family Trial Docket in Middletown, where I was the presiding judge. And 4 years later, in September of 2021, I was assigned to the Family Division for the Judicial District of Hartford as the presiding judge. I'm thankful for the opportunity to sit as a Superior Court judge, to work with very dedicated people, and to preside over cases that are so important to the citizens of the state of Connecticut. I would be grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve another term. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Representative Doucette of Manchester.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And good morning, Judge Diana. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to say hello. We've known each other for quite a long time, and I have known you to be a person of great integrity and of great temperament in all of my experiences with you. I wanted to share that with the rest of my committee, and you have a long and distinguished record of service to the community. A few things even that I see you left off your application, but I assume you ran out of room with that. But these are all very good things, and you've been served the community well. You've been an institution in Manchester. Your family has as well. So I wholeheartedly supporting your renomination. One question while I have you, I did note on your questionnaire that you have some appellate decisions as well. And as you may know, I'm not much of a litigator or appellate attorney aside from my moot court and law school. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in that, in writing appellate opinions and how that comes about, and how much of that you've had the opportunity to do?
I was invited to sit on 3 cases in the appellate court, and I got to sit with Judge Deepantima, who was the head of the appellate court at the time. And the cases are preset, and you have an opportunity to review all the briefs and the reply briefs. And it was an honor to be asked, and then you get to, of course, meet the other judges and sit on the panel, which is very different from the Superior Court. The room is amazing. They have a robing room, and the issues are quite intricate, very well briefed. So you have an opportunity ahead of time to study what the issues are. And after you hear the the arguments. Then the judges meet immediately thereafter in the robing room to discuss the cases. And then the cases are assigned to who's going to write them. I got to write the family case because that's been my passion for the last 30 plus years. Boreen versus Boreen, it was kind of an intricate issue regarding alimony. And so then I drafted the decision. I had a clerk review it, and it's circulated among the other judges. And there's comments that are made between the judges about the decision. And then you discuss those and review those. And when you reach your final copy, it's published. So that was the decision I wrote, Boreen versus Boreen. So it was one of the most amazing opportunities I had on the bench. Second only to marrying my daughter virtually on the computer during the pandemic, she's a doctor down at Walter Reed, and we couldn't go there because of the pandemic. And so I was able to do it virtually because of an executive order from the governor of the state of Maryland. So that's been the appellate court was my second biggest accomplishment as a judge.
All right. That's fantastic. And don't forget, one of the things you left off, I'm sure you ran out of room, is that you and I saw each other a few weeks ago for the swearing in of the new straight groundhog at the Lutz Children's Museum, which is something that's very important to us in Manchester and the state of Connecticut as a state groundhog. And that was pretty cool. But an example of, again, your community service and your appellate experience there. You just detailed, I think, an example of you being a workhorse and somebody who's willing to step up and do the hard work. And family court, I submit, where you sit, is probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest, jobs out there for a judge. So again, I commend you. Certainly be supporting your renomination and encourage all my fellow committee members to do so. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I completely understand if a judge comes from an individual representative's district, why they want to go first. And I'd like to be associated with the remarks of Representative Doucette. And I can't say that I was on the bubble till I heard the Chuckles issue, but clearly, Your Honor, I can't believe it's been 8 years, because it seems like just yesterday you came before us. And along the lines of what Representative Doucette was alluding to, and outside the realm of having the tremendous honor of marrying your daughter, which that's like once in a lifetime sort of awesome kind of thing. But how, first of all, along the lines of your passion is an area of the law that we have had, unfortunately, a lot of renominees come before us that have had some very upset litigants because family court, very rarely does everybody walk away from any marital decision happy. And there's going to be winners and losers, or perceptions of winners and losers. And the bench does its very best to be even-handed. But in this time of the pandemic, given your insights over the last 8 years and this area of focus that you have you seen an uptick in certain issues regarding dissolutions and separations and the like, child custody matters? I mean, has the pandemic, my sort of gut tells me that it's been a stressor in multiple ways, probably some we haven't even seen the fallout from yet. But I'm just wondering, from your perspective, above and beyond the technological utilization of things like Zoom for hearings, just the issues that have come before you and what the pandemic has done to the institution of the family.
Two major issues are glowing, unfortunately. Mental health issues among children, and children specifically in their preteen, teenage years. Heartbreaking examples, case after case. I had two in one day where a 13-year-old in one and I think a 12-year-old in another had attempted suicide. All related to the pandemic, their parents' divorce, their isolation. And so that is just, I think, out of control. And you do hear the most heartbreaking issues in family court. The second kind of glowing area is drug abuse and drug addiction. It plays out over and over again in family cases where, you know, the results are terrible. People go through money, or people get violent, or people are threatening, and you stem them right back to drug addiction. So I think that's been, in my experience, the two results of the pandemic.
And when you say drugs, would alcohol fit into that categorization as well?
It would, but more of heroin. I've become very familiar with heroin in the family court, and now fentanyl. See it every single day. There's some case related to that subject matter.
Wow, that's really surprising. I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. We know that there's issues regarding crime and fentanyl, and the fact that fentanyl and heroin are so intermixable, and fentanyl now seems to be the drug du jour as opposed to heroin. But the fact that it's creeping up into issues of marital dissolution and divorce and child custody and things like that, that's a huge issue that we have to get our arms around. And the idea that mental health for young people, I know that we just, our caucus, with the help of Senator Summers, who brought to bear the fact that adolescent girls, their incidence of suicide or attempted suicide is like up 40% in 2 years. It's scary. So, Your Honor, I appreciate those insights. You're going to have your hands full over the next year, so we can't really use you as a resource. But to the extent the legislature needs to be informed of any more of these things, I think that to the extent the branches can work together and get that information over to us, it helps ground us and direct our future legislation. And again, I just can't believe the last 8 years your family was, up here in Enfield, reading the Journal-Inquirer, very well known. And boy, it probably flew if you're loving the job, as pretty much every person who gets appointed to the bench does. And I just wish you the very best, and thank you for all your public service and hard work on the bench in an area where a lot of folks don't have the passion. And thank God that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Fishbein.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Judge Diana. I'd be remiss if I didn't have something to say here today. You and I practiced against each other before you went on the bench, and I know I've been before you more than a few times while you've been on the bench, and I've always seen your demeanor to be level-headed and following the law. I just wanted to congratulate you on your renomination coming before us. I will stress the fentanyl issue. We need to do something. We were just informed yesterday of 2 inmates, actually, in New Haven Correctional, who were in the same cell together. They both overdosed and died of fentanyl overdose. We have to rein this in. So once again, thank you for all you've done, and congratulations on your renomination.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Representative. Further questions or comments? If not, Judge Diana, thank you for congratulations on your renomination. Thanks for being with us and for your service to the state.
Thank you, Chairman. Take care.
Next up will be the Honorable Tammy D. Gaithers of Bloomfield. Judge, good morning. I think you're on mute. If you could just, you can unmute yourself there for me. There we are. All right. Good morning, Judge.
I knew I would do that. I just knew it.
You know, it happens in the hearing room too. There's this little button on the thing, and the last person will shut it off, and somebody else will come up, and it won't be on. So
yes,
not unique to the Zoom platform. All right, if you could raise your right hand for me, please.
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information provided to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Great. If you have an opening statement, Judge, you can go ahead and make it at this time.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Chairman Winfield, Senator Kissel, Representative Staffstrom, Representative Fishbein, and all other members of the committee that are here today. My name is Tammy Gethers. I live in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and I am absolutely honored to appear before you all today. I wish to thank Governor Lamont for my renomination. Additionally, I wish to thank my family, my son, siblings, and my new granddaughter. Well, she's actually 3 years old, Ms. Eva. I also wish to thank the staff at the New Britain Superior Court, including but not limited to the clerk's office, the bail commissioner's office, family relations, the court monitors, the interpreters, and of course, the judicial marshals, all of whom contribute to my doing my job. I've had the privilege of serving the people of the state of Connecticut for 8 years. And if confirmed for my second term, I look forward to continuing in that job. I've sat primarily in criminal courts in Hartford, New Britain, and I was the presiding judge in community court in Hartford. When I was first appointed, I received my training in the domestic violence court for a few months at GA 14 in Hartford. I then sat my first full term in the criminal court GA 15 in New Britain. I then served for about 3 years as the presiding judge in community court. Subsequently, I sat in Hartford again, but as the trial judge for Part B matters. I'm currently sitting in New Britain Criminal Court, and New Britain Criminal Court is a block assignment, which requires the judges there to handle or pitch in wherever we're needed. So although I primarily sit in criminal court, I've also sat in civil court, hearing civil protective orders and temporary restraining orders and their hearings. I'm very proud. Oh, and by the way, during the pandemic, I also sat or heard small claim court matters. I'm very anxious to get to where I sit. I'm very proud to sit in GA 15 in New Britain. We were one of 6 courts that remained open during the entirety of the pandemic. The presiding judge, Maureen Keegan, she was there for the entirety of the pandemic. I was not, along with other staff, but eventually I was allowed to ease my way back to court. At first, it started as a couple of days for half days, and then eventually it progressed to 2 times per week, then to full days. I'm proud that we were able to make sure that the people of the state of Connecticut were served. For instance, the people that were incarcerated, they were able to have their bonds reviewed, and that domestic violence victims in particular were protected because of this. I think we did a really good job in New Britain with the resources that we had and during the time of the pandemic. I am honored again to appear before you today, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Representative Fishbein.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, you've been on the bench for about 8 years.
Yes.
You've progressed. You are now presiding judge of the community court.
Well, no, I was.
Okay.
I'm still in New Britain.
Okay. So when you became presiding judge in in Hartford at the community court, what were you doing there? What kind of cases are at the community court?
Those are basically low-level misdemeanors and quality of life infractions. What the community court was designed to do was to help in the rehabilitative efforts of the population or the demographics that appeared before me. For instance, there was a lot of homelessness mixed with drug addiction, mixed with mental health issues. And what would occur is we would, as opposed to the state prosecuting, of these individuals, what would happen is they would be diverted to service providers. So it was sort of a carrot stick type situation. The state wouldn't prosecute if they sought mental health treatment, if they sought treatment for their substance abuse. Some services also provided help and aid in getting a lot of these individuals off of the street, because a lot of individuals committed the crimes that they did because of their situation, because of their homelessness, because of their drug addiction, mental health issues. And some individuals suffered from all three. So what the community court did was, instead of prosecution, diverting these individuals to different service providers, should they, for instance, have or suffered from a substance abuse problem. If they agreed to go into a inpatient treatment program, then the state would drop their charges. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I found it to be very interesting. And I loved it, actually. I sat there for 3 years.
Yeah, and from there, you went, well, I think it's a couple doors over to GA 14.
So yeah, from there I was, I served my next term as the trial judge of Part B matters at GA 14 in Hartford.
Okay, and then you went to New Britain, and that's where you presently are.
Yes, yes.
And you're handling a bunch of different types of cases.
Yes.
Okay. Would the transition from New Britain Criminal Court to Hartford Community Court, did you see that as a promotion? Just internally, how did you look at that?
I wouldn't necessarily say it was a promotion per se. Sometimes we're just assigned where there's a need. For instance, at the time, Judge Norkel, Ray Norkel, he was very ill, and he was only coming in like 1 day per week. And I won't say that it was just very difficult. It was a difficult time in terms of that court. And Judge Norkel needed help. And Judge Norkel was one of the first judges that I appeared before early on in my career. And from what I'm not sure if it's true or not, but he told me that he had recommended me for that assignment because he's was familiar with me. So.
And then going to GA 14, how did you perceive that? I mean, the community court, there's a rewarding aspect to that.
It
right?
is. I found it very
people out of the system, right?
Yes, yes.
Setting them on a good path.
Yes.
You're hoping that you never see them again, right? And
Yes.
then we go to GA 14, where it's like, okay, I got to make some decisions over these people. And how did you see that? Was that a promotion? Or, I mean,
it was another assignment, but it was different. That during that time, I was the trial judge. So instead of being put in a Part B court where you heard everything, I just presided over trials and violation of probation hearings and heard different pretrial motions. As a judge, trying cases, that was new to me. So that was a whole new challenge, for lack of a better word, because obviously I was used to just hearing cases, and that moves very quickly. But presiding over a trial, a lot of work goes into that, which I didn't realize. And I think I worked just as hard as the attorneys that appeared before me. And there's a lot that I didn't realize until I presided over trials. It's a lot that goes into that. So that was I was very happy to have been afforded the opportunity to add that on to my experience as a judge.
Sure. I mean, you've done a lot here. The one thing though that jumps off the page at me, while you're doing criminal, you're doing TROs in family court, 46B15s and that kind of stuff. You're doing small claims, but there's no family court. I get a lot of complaints. There's not a lot of judges in family court, or you never served in family court, correct?
Not yet, no. We actually have no, what happens is we get to choose. We don't choose, but we are given a choice of our top three. And, but it's really not up to us where we go. It's really not.
Sure.
I have no, yeah.
Yeah, the growth process. So I would expect that you haven't selected that as one of your top three.
No, I haven't yet.
Okay.
But I actually enjoy, I really enjoy the temporary restraining orders and civil protective orders. In fact, I often hear or preside over those hearings the same day as I preside over my regular duties as a criminal court judge in New Britain. And it sucks. It gets really, especially in New Britain, it's very, very busy. So I don't want to say respite, but it's a different side of my brain working. And I actually enjoy it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, when I was reviewing the backup, I saw that you were at community court for that period of time. And my takeaway was, this is a person who gets reward internally from, seeing people on a good path. I just, I'll put in a plug for family court. Sometimes you go home and you say, I did right by that kid. That kid, putting them with mom or dad, I know that 20 years from now, they're going to be in a good place. So I think you'd see some reward there. So anyway.
I absolutely agree. And I have no problem doing that. I go where they send me. And I've actually had no problem going, because being a judge it's just the biggest reward of my career. So I enjoy every aspect of it, no matter where or what area.
Understood. Well, thank you. And congratulations on your renomination.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chairman Winfield.
Good morning, Judge Gathers.
Good morning.
Good to see you. I just briefly wanted to tell you that I was speaking about you recently, going back to time I was in the House and you were attempting to become a judge.
Yes.
We had a lot of phone calls on your multiple attempts to become a judge, and your story came up in talking to some other people who are seeking to do the same thing. And I know how stressful it was for you during that time, but I just wanted to let you know that your story has helped other people. So I thought it was important to let you know that, since I had the opportunity. And good morning.
Good morning. If I could just add, I agree with that. And I thank you for that. And I love reaching back to help others. I think that's part of our responsibility. Once we're given an opportunity, I think we should pass it on. And I've had the great honor of doing so. There was a class of 20, or is a class of 22 new judges that are coming aboard. And for at least 3 of them, I wrote recommendations for, and they made it. And that does my heart so good. It really does. So,
Well, I'm glad you're there to be able to do that.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Kissel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, congratulations, Your Honor. You're doing better than me, because I wrote 3 letters and only 2 made it, but I'm really psyched for those 2 individuals. Maybe we crossed on a couple, who knows? You never know. We'll find out when they come up before us, but I was really happy to see their names. Also, I grew up in Windsor. You're from Bloomfield, so it's nice to see a jurist from our neck of the woods. And you seem really excited about the job. So again, congratulations. You mentioned Judge Norco. He's just legendary in my
Oh my
opinion. And I
goodness.
think amongst Greater Hartford, anybody who knows that court, he was so passionate about that court. So I'm sure you do, but I'm just underlining, if he hand selected you to help out with that court, that's a huge honor because that was his
Yeah.
baby. And, you know, again, how nice to be able to see some immediate gratification as far as changing people's lives. A lot of times with our job, not that I would belittle it in the least, because I love it so much and I've been doing it. I've been so honored to do it for so long. But you know, we pass a bill, we pass a law, and who knows? It's like Johnny Appleseed, and we'll see if a tree grows or what happens down the road. I actually was meeting with someone yesterday where we worked on a program review and investigations report from 2016, and it's still having a bearing regarding some issues today. And I took some happiness with that. But the question that I have is, especially with the block assignment in New Britain, I think you answered this with my fellow ranking member, Representative Fishbein, but when you sort of switch around from criminal to civil, in my experience in the courthouse, and it's been a number of years since I've actually been in a courthouse, but back in the day, I used to have a lot more time. The criminal judges tended to be the criminal judges, the civil judges tended to be the civil judges. So with a block assignment, it seems like you get a little bit of both worlds. And is that a pleasant experience, or is it really sort of hard juggling, you know, beyond reasonable doubt, you know, preponderance of the evidence? You got all these things you're juggling.
That's what I love about it. But that's exactly what I love about it. For me, it's just an elevator ride to the second floor. It's different people, different disciplines, but it's a challenge to me. I love, and I still am as old as I am, I love seeking new challenges, you know, and
I think you're younger than me, so come on.
Oh, yeah, go. I'm about to be 60 in a few months, so. But I'm still curious. I haven't lost that. You know, that's why it really doesn't matter to me when these assignments come out where I'm sent, because I am still curious. And I feel as though as long as we're alive, we're still learning. I think that keeps us alive. I think it keeps it fresh. It makes life interesting. So I love it. And I don't have a difficult time making that transition. I really don't.
It's good to know. I appreciate that. And I sort of look at things differently than my friend and colleague, Representative Fishbein. I don't view like your assignments as promotions or not promotions. I view the judicial system as a whole. And so like you need a liver, you need lungs, you need a heart, you need all, you know, and so where you go, and I like the idea that you have your top three, and that's sort of how we end up with our committees, right? Leadership has to sort of fill all the spots, and you end up where you're going, where you're needed. And then you end up developing certain passions and areas of expertise, and the leadership or the chief court administrator or whomever makes these ultimate decisions says, you've got a knack for this. We have a need for this. Perfect fit. And so I'm glad that you've had this experience. And as I said to the previous nominee, those 8 years went by super fast, I bet, in your opinion, and I'm sure you're looking forward to the next. So congratulations, and thank you for helping the people of the state of Connecticut.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you're younger than me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Senator. All right. Further questions or comments from the committee? Further questions or comments? If not, Judge, certainly congratulations on your renomination. Your enthusiasm for the job is apparent, I think, not just in your answers today, but I don't know that I've been doing this for several years now, and I don't know that I've ever seen a questionnaire that had such lengthy answers in terms of the top 10 matters worked on. Normally we get this list and it's, you know, the Smith versus Jones case. And we're like, all right, well, what happened in Smith versus Jones, right? And at best, maybe we get a sentence or two about the Smith versus Jones case, but I think you provided us with a 7 paragraphs on each of your top 10 pages.
It's a good strategy.
It is a good strategy. So
Thank you.
for future reference, right? But
Thank you.
anyway, congratulations again.
All right,
Thanks for being
thank
with
you,
us.
thank you, guys, thank you.
All right. Next up will be the Honorable Jane K. Grossman of Hamden. Judge Grossman, there you are. If you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information provided to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. If you have an opening statement, you can go ahead.
Thank you, and good morning, Senator Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, Senator Kissel, Representative Fishbein, and members of the committee. It is my pleasure to be before you today for reappointment to a second term as a Superior Court judge. I am grateful to Governor Lamont for his confidence in nominating me for this position. Since I was last before this committee, I have been assigned to the judicial districts of New Haven, Ansonia, Milford, and Fairfield. I am currently serving as the presiding judge of family matters in New Haven. I consider it a privilege to serve as a Superior Court judge, and I hope to be approved by this committee, and I hope for the opportunity to continue in that role. So to that end, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Judge Grossman. Judge, I used to see you in the courtroom. You were practicing. We never had a case together, but sitting in the gallery, you get to see how people act before the court. I've always seen you to be a polite, respectful individual, and I think you were magistrate after that. I think.
Yes, sir.
The New Haven Bar was always saying she'd make a great judge. And I know when that happened, we were all very happy. So, I've been before you, maybe a dozen times. And I've never had a problem. So congratulations on your renomination. And, you're doing great stuff working in family court. And just thank you for what you do and what you will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Fishbein.
Representative Porter. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And congratulations, Judge Grossman. This doesn't happen for me often, but I actually have a constituent that felt it necessary to reach out to me to put me on notice that you would be before us today, and spoke very highly of you. And I have to say, along with what Representative Fishbein just said, added with what she had to say, and what I've seen, through the questionnaire, that I am honored to be on this committee today, not just for you, but especially for you, to honor her request in supporting you. We go way back. I trust her judgment, and she's spoken very highly of you. We affectionately know her as Queen Bab, so I thought I'd let you know who it is as well. But I'm just honored to have you before us today, and honored that we have someone like you seated on the bench, especially during the times that we're dealing with now. It's been a lot of stress on everyone. We talk about mental health on the children and what they're dealing with, but I know myself, along with others, are actually dealing with that as well. And I can't imagine what you all deal with, sitting on the bench and having to deal with the responsibility that comes along with that. So I just want to say thank you personally for the job that you do and the way that you continue to do it. And I wish you much success moving forward. And I just want to congratulate you on your reappointment.
Thank you so much, Representative Porter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Those kind words.
You're welcome, Judge Grossman. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Further questions or comments from the committee? Senator Kissel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Honor, congratulations. You don't have to reveal the name, but was it Queen Bab? Do you know who this person is?
I do know the constituent that Representative Porter is talking about. And I think, to be fair, I have to say that I have known this person since before I had my law degree. We go way back.
Wow. All right. Well, it's always, not to say anything, but Representative Porter's correct. For us to get outreach from our constituents in favor of a judge, that's highly unusual. So that's great. Congratulations.
I'd be happy to stand out in that way and that way alone, Senator. If we could work on that, that'd be great.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Further questions or comments from the committee? Further questions or comments? If not, Judge Grossman, congratulations on your renomination. I too have had folks reach out in support of your nomination. So you clearly are making an impression on someone. So thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I am going to pass the gavel to Senator Winfield.
All right, we will continue with the Honorable Kevin J. Murphy of Berlin. Murphy, I'm looking for you. I see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. If you might raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information you will provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
You may present your statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman Senator Winfield, Chairman Representative Staffstrom, Ranking Member Senator Kissel, and Ranking Member Representative Fishbein, and all other members of the Judiciary Committee. I also do want to thank Governor Lamont for nominating me to a second term as a Superior Court judge. I do want to thank the members of the Judicial Selection Committee and the Judicial Review Council for recommending me for reappointment. There's a lot of folks I'd like to thank. Obviously, I don't want to spend time doing that, or spend your time doing that, but I certainly could not be where I am without their support, and I do want to thank them. I also do want to especially thank the clerks, marshals, the court monitors, bail commissioners, probation officers, family relations officers for their hard work during my time as a judge. I believe we all have roles in the judicial system, and I believe as a judge, I'm just one of those members of the team, and it certainly would be an honor if I could continue my work alongside these remarkable people. I know it's a potentially long day for everybody here, and so I had a longer sort of list of things that I've been doing for the last 8 years. I just want to indicate that I've been blessed for the 8 years to serve primarily criminal and family, also housing, and a little bit of small claims. As a person and as a judge, I've learned to be more patient and to steer around the conflict that sometimes develops in cases. I have tried to better myself as a person and as a professional. That goal has brought me into new areas of law as a judge. When given the opportunity, I decided to challenge myself as a judge and volunteer for assignments where I thought there was a need. And some of them were very difficult and out of my main area of expertise. But I feel very blessed that I was able to go into those areas and to challenge myself and hopefully make myself a better person and a better judge as a result. I do appreciate everyone's consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you very much, Representative Fishbein. Representative Fishbein? You're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, there I am. Good morning, Your Honor. How are you?
Good morning, Representative Fishbein. Good to see you.
Nice to see you again. Judge, do you have your questionnaire before you?
I do.
Okay. And if you look at the last page of that, is it signed?
Okay.
The question is it signed?
Oh, I apologize. It is signed in November, but I should point out that I recently updated my questionnaire because I found out there was a complaint made against me at the Judicial Review Council. So I did not want to delay my hearing today. So basically I updated my 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 questionnaire actually twice since in the last week. So it is signed, although the one that you may be looking at is not signed.
Okay, I believe this one was received February 11th, and
Yeah, I believe that's
is
right.
okay. Is there a reason why it was not signed?
I will tell you honestly, I was trying to work between being at home and when I received the complaint, and I did not have the ability, I couldn't find the application in my computer at home. So I wanted to make sure I got it to the commission or to the committee as soon as possible. And so I basically, using the limited technology that I had, I sent it on like that. I certainly did not intend not to sign it. It was just, I was trying to get the information to the committee as soon as possible.
Okay, and that matter that you were bringing to our attention, that has been disposed of, correct?
Yes, there are actually two matters that just happened.
And I think we got the,
Yeah, the matter involving, I'm trying to look at my notes here. Andrew Cook was an individual that appeared before me in GA court in Norwich, and he filed a complaint, and then that was recently dismissed. Then additionally, I have been also doing family work in Norwich, and there was a complaint filed by an individual, I believe his last name was Pacheco, because I had granted a temporary custody order, and he filed a complaint based on that. That was recently filed, maybe about a week ago. So Judicial Review Council has not had a chance to review that yet.
okay, in the Cook matter, I believe you forwarded us a letter of dismissal with regard to that.
Correct.
And do you have that in front of you?
I think so. Let's just see. That's correct. I do have it in front of me.
Okay, and it's probably not your fault, but am I to understand that this letter appears to be dated February 16 of 2021, having to do with a complaint that was filed in 2022?
That's correct. I did not notice it until you mentioned that. You're right. It does say February 16th, 2021. I did not notice it till just now.
Okay, but that's not that's their internal situation. Okay.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going back to your questionnaire, just pulling that up again. You've been in 4 different courthouses. She started in Middletown doing criminal, and then I was before you a bunch of times in Meriden.
Correct.
And then I thought from Meriden you went to Middletown.
I did.
Okay. So if we go back to your questionnaire.
Yes, sir.
And you look at the biographical information page.
Okay.
It lists your assignments for the last term. It appears that Middletown is missing, right? Unless it isn't in order.
I mean, I have the General Assembly questionnaire in front of me. And
I'm looking at
I'm
it's
not
the
actually.
document the document that I'm referring to. Up top, it says Connecticut Judicial Branch biographical information for reappointment purposes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no problem. The 3rd section down, it indicates that you started in Middletown.
If it says that, it's not correct. They started the what I'm looking at on page 3, and it says, well, I'm looking at the Judicial Selection Commission application. I started in GA 14 on May 21st, 2014. And then my next assignment was Enfield Court in GA 13 in January of 2015. So if there is something there that says I started in Middletown, then that would not be correct. I started in GA 14, where I sat criminal in Enfield for criminal for about a half of a year. Then I was in the Waterbury Judicial District, Part A and Part B criminal doing trials. In 2015, I was in Tindal Judicial District, sitting family in 2017, and then in Meriden, I sat family and criminal when we were together, and then the Middlesex Judicial District was my previous assignment to Norwich, and I sat there for 2 years doing family, criminal, and housing. I didn't do as much family there as I did in Meriden, so I apologize if there's a document you have that's incomplete.
Yeah, there is no reference to Enfield. I'll tell you the document that I'm looking at. I have two documents I have a few documents with regard to you, but the two documents that I'm looking at, one is biographical information for reappointment purposes. There's a question on there. It says assignments over the last term. The answer to that question is Middletown GA 9 criminal, Meriden JD family and GA 7 criminal, Rockville JD family, and Waterbury JD GA criminal.
Okay.
It doesn't. So is it just Enfield that's missing from the list?
I guess, and I do apologize. I have 3 applications here in front of me, and I'm trying to go through them all. I don't see the one you're referring to. So if Enfield is not in there, then that would be an error on my part, and I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just scanning the rest of this document, and yeah, the Enfield's not mentioned. And when Rockville, it's the Rockville Talent Court, correct? So
that's correct. It's the lower. Rockville has sort of 2 courts, and one's the big criminal court on the hill, and then I'm actually was sitting in the smaller, the civil and family court at the bottom of the hill.
That's the Talon Court, correct?
The Talon, yes, Talon Judicial District.
Okay. Yeah, and the other one's considered to be the Rockville Court, correct?
I mean, I think they're all part of the Talon Judicial District, but it is sitting in Rockville.
Okay, all right. Well, it's yeah. I had a particular case before you that I wanted to ask you about. It's over the years, and you may recall. In that case, do you recall this? We had a lengthy case that I handled that you presided on.
Fishbein, I do remember that we had at least one case that was fairly lengthy. As we're talking right now, I don't recall the name of it, but I know that you and I did have contact on at least one significant case.
Okay, and I didn't know if it was necessary. I can talk about the facts without naming the case. And in that particular case, I represented the wife. The husband was also represented, and I'd filed a motion for exclusive use. And you presided over a hearing, and you gave the mom exclusive use of the home. And at the time of your order, it was during the hearing, it was brought to your attention that there was a firearm in the house. And you allowed the husband, the context of the divorce, to go back to the home to retrieve his personal property. Okay. But you expressly told him not to remove any firearms from the premises.
Okay.
It was thereafter brought to your attention that the firearm was removed from the home. You
Right.
recall? You recall?
I vaguely
that?
remember, I think there was maybe a friend of the husband who had a police officer friend that took the weapon or something like that.
Yes, that Mr. had originally testified that he gave it to the police officer, that it accompanied him to get his personal property, but then it came to your attention thereafter that it was a personal friend who happened to be a police officer of a different jurisdiction.
Okay.
In that case, I had filed a motion for contempt.
All right.
And ultimately, what you decided to do was to order the individual who then had possession of the firearm, who you didn't have jurisdiction over because they weren't a party to the action, not to do anything with the firearm, not to give it back to the individual. Okay. Can you just, I thought it was an unusual decision in that you didn't have jurisdiction over that individual. Why would you, or why did you make that ruling?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly my language. I'll trust you because again, it was your case, and I'm sure you took, good notes as to what happened. My recollection is this, and when I am involved in these family matters, I'm hesitant to find someone in contempt. Not to say they shouldn't be found in contempt, but it's usually my plan and my hope that parties work out agreements with each other. And, these matters, and I think this matter was a fairly contentious matter. The matters are, they're just so fraught with conflict. And I felt that by not finding the husband in contempt, that I was trying to de-escalate the conflict. Obviously, if the husband removed the item and I had ordered him not to, and again, I don't have all the information in front of me, I'm just taking, what you say, I'll take your word for it. I probably, without reviewing everything carefully right now, I probably was trying to de-escalate the situation. And it was, so I think that's probably my answer to it. As far as what I was thinking, I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork a little bit more carefully and maybe listen to my comments on the record in order to be able to explain that to you further.
All right, and I respect the fact that you don't have documents in front of you. And I have the order, and I'll read to you. It's just a couple of lines.
Okay.
The court orders Officer David Hartman, who was he was a third party, to not return the pistol and safe to the defendant, and I'll leave the defendant's name out, or to any other individual at this time. Officer David Hartman may return the pistol and safe once the trial is concluded, unless otherwise so ordered. The problem from my perspective is what jurisdiction do you have over that individual? What protection of the woman who has claimed domestic violence in that case are you affording her, since you can't find Officer David Hartman in contempt? He's not properly served. He's not a party to the action.
Well, I suppose my quick answer is this. One is I don't believe that the wife ever filed any criminal complaint in the police department against her husband. And so obviously there was no criminal action pending. If there were, then there would have been a protective order in place that would have prohibited the husband from possessing a firearm. But my recollection is that there was no such order and there was no such criminal complaint. In regard to what authority I had, I think if any authority I had probably was through the husband, and that is that the police officer acting as an agent for the husband, if I ordered him not to return it to the husband, then again, my best guess at this point is that my authority over that person would have been as an agent of the defendant, the husband, in that matter.
And not to belabor this, but at this point, the husband has already violated your order because you initially ordered him not to remove any firearms from the home.
Again, it may be true. I'd have to look more carefully at it to, why I did not find him actually in contempt of the family order in that matter. Like I said, my intent probably was to try to de-escalate the conflict that was going on there.
Yeah, I mean, what actually happened at the end is the motion for contempt didn't get heard. You deferred it till the time of trial, and then you refused to retain jurisdiction over the case. That became an issue, whether or not you were going to hear that motion for contempt, and that didn't happen. So, I appreciate the exchange. Judge, we also get, there's a scoring system that the judicial branch does of judges, and they take your class. My understanding is they take the class, and there's a median average, and they apply where this particular judge is. Have you seen those scores?
Yes.
Okay, so
I'm not thrilled with them. I'm actually very disappointed with my scores.
As am I. And, with regard to comportment, what is your understanding of what comportment is in this context?
Well, I mean, I'll say generally, basically, for those who aren't familiar with the judicial department does a anonymous evaluation of the judges, and the attorneys that appear before the judges after certain types of hearings or trials are given a questionnaire, and they're asked to evaluate the judges based on, I think comportment may be one of them, but certainly judicial temperament is a significant portion of that. There are also similar questionnaires given to jurors to evaluate, again, a judge's judicial temperament, as well as some other factors. And the evaluation that you're referring to is that I received evaluations back in 2018. I believe that maybe I'm picking a number now, 36 or 40 different trials or family hearings that the attorneys filled out the anonymous evaluation of me, and I ended up in, I think, the bottom 10% of all the judges for I think one of that categories was judicial temperament. I wasn't in the bottom 10% of all of them, but I certainly was as far as that judicial temperament. And honestly, it was a shock in some ways to me. I always thought when I was, especially the family matters, that I was going to be viewed by the attorneys as a fair but maybe tough judge. But I never expected to see scores like that. And so as a result, I talked to Judge Bizzuto. I actually consulted with Judge Albus because I believe that the main source of those negative reviews was my family work. It was the first time that I had been involved in family sort of cases when I was sitting in Rockville and Tallinn. And I was very disappointed in myself. I felt that I probably took too much. The conflict probably put me in a much more foul mood in some cases, not all, but in some cases. And I think that probably was reflected in those judicial temperament scores. So I actually spent a number of months after that working with Judge Albus. Continued to sit in Meriden. That's when I would have had contact with you, Representative Fishbein. And I actually made a special attempt. It was a great learning experience for me. I'm glad I sat family. It was hard. And I think I'm a better judge as a result.
Well, just to go back to the scores, so the median average for comportment was 89.8 of your class. That was the average, and you scored at 58.4. The next category is legal ability, and the average was 89.3. And you scored at 59.8. And the third category is management skills. And the average was 90.9, and you scored at 71%. And I believe everything that you just had to say addresses those scores. Is there anything else you want to say about those scores in particular?
Well, I guess I would like everyone to be aware too. And again, I'm not making any excuses. I think I learned a lot about myself through evaluating those scores and talking to Judge Pizzuto and Judge Albus and other judges about it. I will say that I spent 2 years trying cases. I tried 18 jury trials, or it's certainly felony trials. I think at least 16 were jury trials. And most of those cases were appealed, and they were all, I was affirmed in every case. There was one reversal on one charge, but I was affirmed on every case out of the, again, I don't recall how many of the 16 jury trials were appealed, but also I issued, I think, around a dozen memorandums of decision while I was sitting in Rockville at family court. And I don't know that any of those decisions were ever challenged, but I was overturned on one grandparent complaint where the appellate court found that I should not have found standing for the grandmother who had filed the complaint. But other than that, there were no, I wasn't reversed. So I guess what I'm saying is, in regard to the knowledge of the law, I think I'm okay on that area. I really do. But I also do recognize that I had a contentious relationship, unnecessarily so, with a number of the attorneys, especially in family court. And I also should point out, as I think I mentioned, the jurors, and I tried, like I said, a number of jury cases. The jurors put me in the top 1% of all judges. So they viewed my knowledge, my fairness, my temperament in a very positive way. So again, no excuses. It was not my best moment as far as my own temperament, but I also, honestly, that was in 2000. Those scores all came before 2018. And since then, I've obviously been a judge for another approximately 4 years, and I really worked really hard at improving myself.
Certainly, you would agree with me that the role of a judge in a jury trial is significantly different than the role of a judge as a fact finder, as well as application of law. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I was a clerk. I used to see judges fall asleep during jury trials. But anyway, the other thing is, what about the questionnaire asked about complaints of litigants? Have you ever had a complaint against you from courthouse staff?
No, I got to say I haven't, unless you know something. I have to say I have I'd describe an excellent relationship with the courthouse staff. As I mentioned in my opening statement, I really do honestly, and I've said this to people in the past, I think I just have one role. I don't view the judge's role as being any more important than any of these other folks, because, you know, when you talk about marshals who have to take people into custody, which is a really hard thing, and to have you know, keep order in the court. You talk about the clerks, these clerks, the amount of work that they have to do filling out paperwork, and in some cases, in family cases, certainly entering orders. Family relations, I mean, I was, as a former prosecutor and certainly as a judge that primarily did criminal cases until I was in my third or fourth year. I did not appreciate the kind of work that family relations folks did as far as trying to mediate disputes and child custody actions and in divorce actions. So I really, I hope, and I certainly, as I'm talking to you now, I believe everyone that I've ever had contact with in the court staff would believe that I treated them with the utmost respect.
I understand your answer. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to ask Judge Murphy questions.
Thank you, Representative Fishbein. I appreciate your questions.
Thank you, Representative Fishbein. Representative O'Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Your Honor, for coming. I'm sorry I'm juggling an environmental committee meeting with the Commissioner of Deep and also this committee, so I apologize. I think I got most of your testimony, and I appreciate you very much for your service. I was chair of judicial selection for a while, a number of years back. And as I know you got through there successfully, and the three things that we looked at judicial selection was experience, ability to try a case, intellect, and temperament. And clearly during your questioning here and your responses, the experience that you've had as a trial lawyer and as a judge shows that you're a very capable trial judge. So, you know, thank you for that. And that's easy to tell from your appellate record, right? So,
thank you. I appreciate your comment.
And the second one is intellect, which goes hand in hand with the first, really, but clearly you have the intellect. I will say some of the feedback I've gotten, I've never appeared before you, so I was listening as well as I could, and I've reached out. So I've never experienced you firsthand. The temperament issue, though, I will tell you, has some of us concerned. And so I acknowledge or I appreciate, now you're gone off my screen. Oh, there you are, Your Honor. Sorry, it moved around. You know, I appreciate your comments about how disappointed you were in your scores. You know, Justice McDonald used to ask when I first came on the committee, you know, how can you assure us you won't be afflicted with robitis to candidates who wanted to become judges? And, you know, it's generally a hard thing to answer. And I'm not saying that you're afflicted with robitis. I don't know that question. I don't know the answer to that question. But it has been raised to me as a concern. So I just wanted to be open with you on that. You know, one of the key things when I was chair of a judicial selection that I wanted to see in a candidate was humility. A candidate who wanted to be a judge has an unbelievable amount of power. And the perception of those that they have to make decisions in front of, he or she has to make sure they've got the right temperament and humility, in my humble opinion, in order to be an effective judge. And clearly you have the right experience and the right intellect, but based on your scores and your responses, I think you would admit that there's at least the perception that by some that there may be a temperament issue or what I would refer to as maybe a concern that there's not enough humility at least coming through as you're sitting on the bench. So I guess my comment or question to you, my long-winded statement and then question is, you know, what did you take away from your conversations? I know you said after you got your scores, but really what from a personal introspective point of view, what did you take away, and how, if at all, did you change once you got those scores? Well, let me ask, when did you get those scores, and then what happened after that?
I got those scores, I want to say early 2018. So probably a little less than 4 years ago. And I immediately spoke, as I said, Judge Bizzuto and other judges, and actually Judge Albus graciously agreed to spend some time with me. He watched me, in court. He gave me some ideas. So basically what I did to try to change myself is this. I think maybe you're all aware of this. I was sitting criminal, and then I was assigned to Rockville, and I volunteered to sit family. I have no regrets doing that, because it really made me a better judge. It allowed me to help judicial department hearing a vast variety of family cases, both in Rockville and Meriden, and actually I have filled in when necessary in Middletown for my 2 years, even though that was primarily my criminal assignment. And in Norwich just recently, Judge Sluger went to senior status, was gone for about 2 or 3 months, and he's coming back, fortunately. But I volunteered to Judge Goodrow that I would hear family cases. So I have been hearing family cases at least 2, well, I won't say at least 2, but approximately 2 every day after I finish my criminal assignment. So again, what I guess my point is, I wouldn't be able to do that now if I hadn't volunteered to do family in Rockville. Having said that, I was not prepared for the level of conflict that was present in those family cases, both from the litigants as well as from the attorneys. And I unfortunately, I think I probably took it just too personally. I found that conflict and the arguments and things, I took it more personally on me. And what I learned for myself is I couldn't take it that personally. I really had to take a deep breath and step back. And I had to recognize that, attorneys were just doing their job, and that, I shouldn't take it personally. And that's really what I worked on for the, last 4 years. I have not really, but I don't think there are any new evaluations since 2018. I don't think there are any negative evaluations. So that's what I did. I actually looked at myself. If I found myself getting a little upset about comments that were being made, I would just take a deep breath, and then, and I think it's improved me. It improved me as a person and improved me as a judge.
Thank you, Your Honor, for that response. And I do appreciate that. Someone who intentionally has never practiced family for that exact reason, I can, just as an attorney for a litigant, there's nothing but negativity that flows out of that practice. No offense to those on this call who practice in family. It's just it's a tough area. So I appreciate your comments. And I have chosen to not take those cases intentionally. So I do understand your response, and I do appreciate that you took that as a learning experience and you volunteered to go there. So that is good. And if the good ranking member already covered this, I apologize. But my understanding is you kind of jumped around a little bit in assignments. Is that fair to say?
Well, not exactly, because I sat criminal in Hartford. Initially, I had 2 different assignments in Hartford. They had a need for a judge in Enfield, so I was assigned to Enfield, doing basically the same stuff. And then I had a 2-year stint in Waterbury, where I was one of 2 primary criminal judges, tried a couple murder cases. I actually worked with Judge Fasano, God rest him, and Judge Cremens doing that assignment. And then that's when I switched over and I was the primary family judge in Rockville. So I did really all criminal. I did basically family, and then I transitioned back to doing criminal. And that's pretty much what I did. Was during the COVID, I volunteered to, one is I was the housing judge, had never done that before, but I still did my criminal stuff. I just did housing on top of criminal. And then over the course of that 2 years while I was doing criminal, I also picked, when Judge Alvis had some family matters that, he needed someone to fill in, I volunteered to do that. So again, the same with Norwich. Norwich is where I am now. I'm doing criminal GA work, but I, because, we finish up criminal, by 3 o'clock each day, I volunteered to take family matters from 3:30 to 5. And so I guess what I'm saying is I don't think I'm jumping around. I think I'm sort of moving along here, but every once in a while I'll pick up these other files when somebody needs some help.
I appreciate that. That's actually what we're looking for, is people the judges to volunteer where needed. So I appreciate that response, because that changes a little bit of what, on paper, what it looks like, as opposed to what you're actually doing and volunteering. So, well, Your Honor, thank you so much for your responses. And I will say, you and I did attend the same law school. I appreciate that experience that you had in DC. I loved it. I will say I was a few years behind you, but not as many as I wish. But no,
you, me, and Jack Bailey went to Catholic law school. All right, yeah.
But I, as someone who didn't come from private practice or a small firm atmosphere, I would encourage you to try and be a little more cognizant or aware of the small time practitioner who may not have the state resources that you had in your prior employment, and just work continually on the third aspect, which obviously you've got the first two down pat. So I appreciate your reflection, Your Honor, and your comments and responses. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative O'Day, thank you very much for kind words. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative O'Day. Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Representative Porter. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Congratulations on the nomination for reappointment. I'm going to make this just as brief as I can, because I think we've been at this for a minute with you. I wanted to go to question number 21, where it talked about your last appointments and complaints that have been filed. And if you could just briefly tell me what went on with this first one with Anthony Brooks, where he felt that he made a claim that you were malicious in sentencing that got dismissed. Could you just give me a little brief synopsis on what that case, the jury of weapons offenses were, and what the sentence was?
Yes, Representative Porter, my recollection is that Mr. Brooks was before me on a matter in which I think he was observed with a firearm, and it was running through the streets of Waterbury at some point, and my recollection is that he threw the firearm down, and ultimately he was found guilty by a jury. And I sentenced him, my recollection again was that I sentenced him to 15 years suspended after 10 years to serve in a period of probation. And he said, because I had given him some type of consecutive time, because the maximum penalty for one of the offenses was 10 years. So I did give him consecutive time. I think his argument was that I was prejudiced against him because I had given him the consecutive time on one of the firearms related charges.
Okay, and I know sometimes when judges do have an instance in that kind of sentence, and it does run concurrent. So could you tell me the reason why you didn't run the sentence in concurrent and you did consecutive?
I unfortunately, Representative Porter, I can't tell you the reason why, because I did not review the PSI in preparation for today's conversation. The Judicial Review Council did dismiss the matter and said there was no probable cause or whatever standard they follow in order to dismiss the complaint. So while I did review Mr. Brooks's complaint, I did not review the PSI. Ordinarily, the PSI, my intent is to focus on three particular goals: the goal of punishment, the goal of rehabilitation, and the goal of deterrence. And what I don't recall offhand why I would have given him that sentence as we're talking.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing I want to know before I move on is, can you tell me, was this, I mean, had he been criminally charged before? He'd been in trouble before? Was this his first offense? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, but I will say, for me to give a sentence like that, I'd have to imagine that he had a prior criminal record.
Okay, thank you.
But unfortunately, without the PSI in front of me, I can't tell you exactly why I did it that way.
That's fine, and I do understand the reasoning behind that. And just for those that don't know, the PSI is the pre-sentencing investigation, right?
That
We
is
talk to
correct.
family members and people like that to kind of get a grip on who the person is and, you know, what they've done up to this point.
That is
The other
absolutely
question.
right.
Thank you. The other question I have, Mr. Orr was in violation of probation and you sentenced him to 5 years to serve.
That's
Can
correct.
you just tell me what the violation was, and was the 5 years what he had left on his sentence?
My recollection, again, without having the PSI in front of me or the documents I had when I sentenced Mr. Orr, he was on probation for, I think, an armed robbery or an assault. I think my recollection is that he pled guilty and received either a suspended sentence or a split sentence down in Bridgeport. And he was in front of me in Waterbury. My recollection is that the state provided evidence that he was transporting drugs from what he was like a go-between as far as sale of drugs on the streets of Waterbury. And that was the evidence before me. So he was on probation time when that transaction occurred. And I, based on that, I did give him 5 years to serve. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And again, I want to just congratulate you on your nomination for reappointment. And I thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me the time to question him.
Thank you, Representative Porter. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Porter, are there comments or questions from others? I do want to just make sure I understood what you were saying earlier. You, in your exchange earlier, Representative Fishbein, you talked about a contentious relationship unnecessarily so. Why was the relationship like that? Was that the thing you were talking about? Sorry, go ahead.
With me and the attorneys, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Well, I think what it was this, Senator Winfield. I took over the family docket in Rockville, and one of my goals was to reduce the backlog. One of general goals, I think, for the courts, for the judicial department, is to try to keep family cases, so they don't exceed a year old. If someone files a divorce action or a custody action, and I think one of our goals is to try to deal with it in the most expeditious manner possible. So when I got there, my recollection, again, without having the numbers in front of me, was there was a fairly significant backlog. And so I made an effort to, as a judge, you can sort of control your docket. You can sort of say, okay, I'm going to take 10 cases today or 5 cases or whatever it is, especially in the family area. And I asked for my clerks to put more cases on than less. And so the result was that I was sort of pushing myself. And I think that when attorneys got in front of me, not just attorneys, I mean, pro se litigants, but I think that the attorneys, I sometimes they would request continuances or things, and I was probably less open to that. And again, I think as Representative O'Day indicated, I mean, I think I needed to be much more aware of the stresses that are on individual, sole practitioners or small practitioners. And I don't think I was quite aware of that. And I also, as I think I indicated before, when attorneys would be particularly, strenuous in their arguments towards me, I think I took them, I took it much too personally. And again, fortunately, since then, I think I've done better. I've tried. And so that's, when I say contentious, what I mean is that in the course, when we're behind the scenes, I always got along with everyone. And even in court, I got along with everyone. But I think that for me, and looking back on that period of time, I was trying really hard to do a good job as a family judge. And I think I took some of the comments by the attorneys on the record. I think I just overreacted, and I really tried to do better.
I appreciate that. I will tell you that for me, that is concerning, right? You suggest that it is prior to 2018, but 2018 is the halfway point in terms of you being a judge. So this is potentially half of the time that you were a judge. What you represented to us the last time you were here about your ability to comport yourself in the courtroom may not necessarily have been true. And while I believe in second chances, it raises concerns for me. Because I do think that we need to make sure that we move as quickly as we can in order to get people justice. But I think we also need to be listening and responsive to what's going on around us. And so I'm not going to belabor that point, but I do think it's critical. And I see that Representative Fishbein has a second question or comment he feels he needs to make. I would just say this. Because this has happened multiple times with the issue of judicial review. And I will say this only for myself, I think it's true of others, but for any person who's coming before us who has something that went to judicial review and it was not upheld, dismissed, whatever the case may be, that does not mean that the Judiciary Committee is not going to ask questions on that. It does not mean that we're not going to delve into it. And I will tell you, there was several cases, but there was one case in particular that sticks in my mind of a judge who had a complaint dismissed. We went back and reviewed it and went back through the transcripts and found out that what was being suggested by the person complaining was actually the case. The judge then somehow remembered what he did not remember, and that judge is no longer on the bench. So because of the level of importance of what is going on when you all come before us, I would make a suggestion to everyone to not come to this committee not prepared if it's on your record somewhere and it's available to us. That's just I think something that you all need to be aware of. And I will now recognize Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, one must question judicial review and their review of an individual with the scores. One must ask, why do we even have the scores if they're perhaps not being looked at? But Judge Murphy, when you were asked the question by Senator Winfield, you specifically talked about your relationship with the bar and litigants in Tolland in family court. Am I to understand that you didn't have the same sort of combative relationship with the lawyers and litigants in the Meriden court, where you also practice family?
I honestly, Representative Fishbein, I would say that's correct. I'd like to think that I got the review while I was in Meriden court. You would be in a very good position to tell me if my judicial temperament during the course of the matter that if it was just that one matter. I felt like we had more than one, but so So I guess the answer is I would like to think, and I believe this is true, that these lower scores are really a reflection more on the my first foray into the family court and family law and dealing with the attorneys there. Again, as I'm talking to you now, I really do have a different attitude towards that type of conflict. And I do think I overreacted back in mostly Rockville, but I'd like to think that when you appeared before me, that I treated you with respect and had the correct judicial temperament.
Now, you were in Rockville family before or after Meriden?
Before Meriden.
Okay, from my personal experience, I thought your temperament was different than other family judges that I have appeared before. And I thought it was at times abrasive. And I can tell you that court staff would complain to me. And I don't even think I was on the Judiciary Committee at that point. So in all candor, that's why I had asked about complaints. I don't know that if any official complaints had ever been made, but I can tell you there were complaints made to me as a lawyer.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. No one ever said anything or filed anything or anything. So it's actually, that's a surprise to me, actually.
Well, that's why I give you the benefit of the doubt, but you asked me about my personal experiences and I answer in candor. So,
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Fishbein. Comment or question from other members of the committee? Comment or question? If not, Representative Padlock-D'Amato.
Thank you, and I apologize for going after Representative Fishbein. I just wanted to ask one question, Judge Murphy, and I want to thank you for your testimony today, and I think your reflection on the years you served as a judge so far. But you had mentioned about taking some of the family cases personally, and I think you mentioned some of what the judges had said. What some of the attorneys had said and or argued, and I was wondering if you could expand on that a little bit, because I just found that to be an interesting statement. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I guess what I was saying is in every, when I sat in Rockville, especially, every Monday we would have short calendar. And we would, at one time, I think we had as many as 50 cases on short calendar. And what short calendar is there is some type of motion filed or dispute, and hopefully a small dispute. And the hope is, of course, that everyone on short calendar goes and sees family relations. They try to triage it, try to work things out. And most of the cases are worked out as by agreements. However, on a typical short calendar day, there could be anywhere from 5 to 10 hearings each day. And I think what probably happened, and again, I don't have any specific recollection, is that when we had some of those contentious kind of situations where someone was arguing that someone hadn't complied with discovery or someone hadn't allowed their child to visit the other parent or whatever it was, sometimes those discussions on the record would become fairly heated between the counsel, and then I would get impatient. Why are we having this argument? Why can't we work this thing out? And I think that that's probably what happened, especially on a day when I had 5 to 10 or even more hearings. I think my patience ran out. And I will say this, again, it was the first time I had done that type of work. I wasn't used to it. In the criminal matter, things are pretty straightforward. Someone commits a crime or is alleged to commit a crime, there's a police report, you review it. But in the family matter, it was unusual for me, and I don't think I handled it as well as I should have, and I've been trying to work on it since then.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer.
All right, thank you very much, Representative. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Dubinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Judge, for coming in. Your discussion has been very insightful for me. Would you just be able to tell me what you think the two most important attributes are for a judge?
I mean, I think that a judge has a lot of important attributes, so I'm going to try to pick out two right now. But I mean, I think common sense is very important, and I think humility is a very important part of it. And so to me, those are probably the two most important: common sense and humility.
Okay, and by your measure, how do you think you rank with regard to those two attributes?
I have to be honest, I really feel like I rank very highly. You know, and I'd say that in the most humble way. Not because I'm embarrassed to say it. I don't like to compliment myself in any way, because I think we all make mistakes. I think we all have our weaknesses, and I think we all need to work as human beings to be better people. And I try to do that every day. And I think that, you know, the reason we're having this conversation now, and while there's, you know, the questions I've had regarding these, you know, the evaluations that happen, it's because I pushed myself in an area that maybe I shouldn't have pushed myself, and it revealed my impatience and maybe taking things too personally. So I will say I mean, there's so many good judges, and there's so many good attorneys out there that do hard work. I would not put myself above any of them. I think I do the best I can, and I think I do a good job. And you know, obviously I'm hoping that you all agree that I should have a chance to, you know, keep doing a good job. So.
Well, thank you for that answer. You've heard a number of, there's been some discussion about things that perhaps some of the attorneys on this committee and some of the other members think that you may have been deficient in. What have you done over your career to try to address some of those things and try to make sure you do better?
Well, the main thing I did was I consulted with Judge Bizzuto and Judge Albus and a number of other folks. I mean, I was working alongside Judge Grossman, who was a tremendous family judge. Judge Diana, I worked, I mean, again, he was in Middletown while I was in Middletown. So, you know, I really honestly, and especially Judge Albus, I'd ask them, okay, how do I do this differently? You know, if I found myself at all being impatient, you know, then I would talk to them and I'd say, you know, how did you handle this? And that's really what I did. I spent a lot more time examining my own, you know, reaction. If I found that I was losing my patience somehow, I honestly probably asked myself much more than I ever did before. You know, why did I lose my patience? And I need to, you know, I need to have better patience. And so I did spend, and I continue every day. If I have people in front of me, I mean, one of the things I know that Representative Fishbein had mentioned something in regard to, every day I'm sitting in criminal court now. There are people who are arrested. They're in front of me every day. I greet them very respectfully. I ask them, sometimes they ask me how I'm doing. I say, fine, how are you doing? But I always address them by name. I try really hard to keep them from, you know, I try to explore what type of programs these are every day, you know, 50 to 100 people a day come in front of me, and I try, you know, I try to be pleasant. And again, if I find myself losing my temper, that doesn't happen that often anymore. But if I find, you know, a little bit of the, you know, Irish coming up in me, and then I try to knock it down and just relax a little bit more. So that's what I've been trying to do.
Okay, well, I appreciate your answers and thank you for coming in. And I thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Chairman.
Appreciate it, Representative Dubinsky.
Thank you, Representative Dubinsky. Comment or question from other members of the committee? Comment or questions? I see none. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Senator Winfield. I do appreciate your comments, and hopefully everyone will send me through. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the Honorable Robert Nastry, Jr. of Hamden. Looking for you. I see you. If you might raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm that the information you will provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God or the penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, you may proceed with your statement.
Thank you. Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, Senator Winfield, Representative Stafford, Senator Kissel, and Representative Fishbein, and distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee. I would like to extend my appreciation to Governor Lamont for showing his confidence in me by this nomination, to this committee for affording me the opportunity to appear before you today to answer any questions. And I'd like to extend my love and gratitude to my loving wife and 4 terrific daughters for their unending support. When first appointed to the bench in the spring of 2014, I was assigned to the criminal court in New Britain. After 3 months, I was assigned to the criminal court in Bristol. They referred to me as the presiding judge. In fact, I was the OJ, the only judge. After a year, I was reassigned to Waterbury, where I had my first experience in family court. Since September of 2016, I've been sitting on the family court bench in Hartford, the largest and arguably the busiest family docket in the state. Socrates is reported to have said 4 things belong to a judge: to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, to decide impartially. Family judges try cases involving tragedy, addiction, infidelity, hopelessness, and abuse. I have found it relatively easy to hear courteously, to consider soberly, and to decide impartially. It is what you folks do all the time. But as you know, answering wisely is more of a challenge. But I work at it every day. Unfortunately, I've had the benefit of generous colleagues, wonderful clerks, family relations officers, state's attorneys, judicial marshals, public defenders, and private attorneys who have helped me along the way, who have steered me to the right answer, and who have ensured I get it right. Thank you for your attention. What would you like to know?
Thank you very much. Comments or questions from members of the committee? Comments or questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon now. Have a great day.
Thank you for your time, folks.
Thank you. We have next the Honorable Cesar A. Noble of West Hartford.
Good afternoon. Thank you, co-chairs Senator Winfield and Representative Staffstrom, ranking members Kissel and Fishbein.
Judge Noble, I have to swear you in first.
Oh, so sorry.
It's no problem. I know we're all excited. So if you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God or on the penalty of perjury?
I do.
You may now proceed.
Thank you. Good morning again. Thank you, co-chair Senator Winfield and Representative Staffstrom, ranking members Kissel and Fishbein, and the rest of this committee for the opportunity to appear before you. And I thank Governor Lamont for renominating me. I've been a judge for 1 term. I've tried very hard to meet the expectations that this committee had for me when I appeared before it 8 years ago. I know you hear this a lot, but it's true. Being a judge is a humbling, challenging, and at the same time, an incredibly rewarding experience. I first sat in the Manchester GA. Thereafter, I was assigned to the regular civil docket in Hartford from September of 2015 through September of 2021. Since September of 2021, I've been assigned to the complex litigation docket. I've also had the privilege of serving on several judicial branch committees, including the Civil Jury Selection Committee, the Civil Commission, and the Remote Jury Trial Work Group. Outside of the courthouse, I'm on the board of directors of the Connecticut Bar Foundation. I've had the opportunity to make a number of presentations and lectures to judges, law students, and at Bar Association seminars. I've judged mock trials and moot court competitions, participated in Read Across America, and I've spoken to high school students about what it's like to be a judge. I would be most grateful to sit for another term, and I thank you for your questions or comments.
Thank you. Comment or question from members of the committee? Comment or question? Do not see any. Therefore, I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from the Honorable Rupal Shah of West Hartford. I do see you. Good afternoon. If you raise your right hand.
Good afternoon.
Do you swear or affirm that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
You may proceed with your statement.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Senator Winfield and Representative Staffstrom, Ranking Member Senator Kissel and Representative Fishbein, Vice Chairman Blumenthal, and respective members of the Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I also want to thank Governor Lamont for nominating me for reappointment to serve a second term as a Superior Court judge. I've been so humbled and privileged to serve the people of the state of Connecticut for the past 8 years. I was first assigned to the GA Criminal Court in Rockville, and when a new class of judges was confirmed 6 months later, I was moved to the New Britain Judicial District to hear civil and family cases. I spent the next year in Litchfield on a block assignment hearing civil, family, and criminal matters. I was then assigned to Waterbury to hear a civil individual docket. I spent much of the last 4 years as a presiding judge of Hartford Housing Court, with a short assignment to Hartford Family Court. I am currently assigned to the Middletown Judicial District, hearing civil matters. No matter where I have served, I've been incredibly impressed and grateful to the staff, clerks, marshals, and everyone that enables the courts to run efficiently and effectively every day. My term as a judge has been the most fulfilling position of my legal career, as many of my colleagues have noted before me. It is a responsibility I take very seriously, one where each day I try to ensure that those who appear before me are treated fairly and with respect. I would be grateful to this committee and the General Assembly for the opportunity to continue to serve as a judge of the Superior Court. I am happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you for your statement. Are there comments or questions from members of the committee? Comments or questions? Seeing none, Judge Short, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Next is the Honorable Erika M. Tindal of New Haven. Judge Tindal, good morning. If you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm? Let me just say to you, you're on mute, so I won't hear you. So could you unmute so that there you go. All right. Do you swear or affirm that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, you may proceed with your statement.
Thank you. I decided when I was 8 years old that I would become a judge. I was often the mediator on the playground, entrusted by the other kids to decide whose turn it was on the swing, who was out, or if the ball was a foul ball in kickball. I was self-assured enough to believe that my sense of fairness could be of service. Painting houses for a living or being an architect, my first two career choices, didn't offer the level of public service that I sought, and architecture involved way too much math. My experience in these 8 years since I was nominated to the bench by Governor Malloy confirms for me that serving as a trial judge affords me an opportunity to serve the public, but also involves a level of math that is well within my comfort zone. I am grateful to Governor Lamont for renominating me to the bench, and I am grateful to you, Senator Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, Senator Flexer, Representative Blumenthal, Senator Kissel, Representative Fishbein, and the other distinguished members of this Judiciary Committee for giving me an opportunity to answer whatever questions you may have about my tenure thus far and my plans for continued service. I've sat as a trial judge in the criminal and family divisions in the Stamford-Norwalk Judicial District. I was the presiding family judge in New Haven Superior Court. In Meriden, I covered the GA when needed and served as the family trial judge. I am currently assigned to the Ansonia Milford Judicial District, where I am the family trial judge in Milford Superior Court. I also cover the GA as needed. I presently serve as the chair of the Law Library Advisory Committee, and I have served on the Education Committee, both as an instructor and as a liaison. I hope you see fit to recommend my nomination to the General Assembly for a favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Your Honor, congratulations.
Thank you.
First of all, it's heartening to know that you recall kickball, because I'm not sure the kids still play kickball nowadays. And yeah, I was wondering, like you said, you were 8 years old and you knew you were going to be a judge. Of course, it took a lot of other people to make positive decisions to make that happen. But, I actually recall I was walking through my neighborhood around the same age with two kids, and I went to door and saying, who would you vote for, this kid or that kid? And a lot of the neighbors said, I vote for you. They picked me because I was running this kids election through the neighborhood. So I don't know, maybe I'm a state senator for a reason as well. But you have a lot of experience in family court. And as we saw with Judge Murphy, it's highly contentious. I'm glad that I am aware of nothing that has caused you to lose your patience, because I think that can be a fatal flaw. I'm not making any judgments on any of the nominees today. We'll see how that all goes, but patience is a virtue, right? And you really need it. And my question specifically is previous renomination by Judge Diana. He said that two things that the pandemic has brought out in his experience in handling family matters is he saw tremendous stresses on mental health, especially children's mental health. And the other issue that he pointed out, which I was shocked, was a large uptick in the utilization of drugs, and that being an undermining factor in these dissolutions and disruptions to the family, especially regarding fentanyl and heroin. And I'm just wondering what your observations are regarding those two aspects, and any others if you could point them out.
Sure. It's nice to see you, Senator Kissel. Thank you for the question. I agree with my colleague. I have seen a tremendous need in family court, where most of my work is these days. It's where I'm assigned, with children as well as the parents. And it is very, very difficult to secure new therapists, to secure counseling appointments. Many families are going for these services and simply are not able to access it. I have, for example, ordered very recently that the children the parents cooperate to put them in counseling, and set a report back date by a certain date. And the parties come back and say, we called these 4 places, they didn't take our insurance, we couldn't get in. So I agree with Judge Diana that that is certainly something I'm seeing as a family trial judge. With respect to drug use, just yesterday, I had a litigant, parents, a custody action where there was a court order by a previous judge regarding the mother's weekly testing. She hadn't gotten the testing, and so I had ordered her right from court to go over to be tested. Fentanyl was one of the substances that they were not able to test with the instant test, but I could test for cocaine, marijuana, heroin. So I just had that experience yesterday. I'm absolutely seeing an uptick. When you first asked the question, I thought you were asking about the mental health and stresses on the judges because of the backlog, but that's a different story. But yes, I could not agree more. And as a judge, I'm cognizant of that and consider that in my orders and what it is that families need. But it's definitely an issue with the COVID pandemic.
Well, I really appreciate that insight. And, clearly we as a legislature, I think, we have proposals that if there's referrals regarding children and young people through the schools, that parents have real difficulty in just finding someone to provide services. And so that's our fault, because we've created an environment where those professionals can't flourish, and we're not attracting folks from other states to our state. And so it's great if we can target the need, but if there's no one to throw the softball to, then that's not going to help anybody. And clearly, if you as a judge are seeing this and you want an intervention before something escalates or someone finds themselves before a different judge on the criminal side of the spectrum, we should have the services and the providers for mental health treatment, whether it's from one end of the spectrum, counseling, all the way to intense psychiatry and everything in between. And we're just not there. So I would urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in both chambers. This is an area that we really need to focus on this session. And here we are hearing it from our judges as well. And regarding your other comment, I would say this. Obviously, it's stressing. I wouldn't want any of our jurists to overindulge in any kind of alcohol or drugs. Yes, there can be legal use of drugs, and I would leave it to everyone's adult decision-making process. But you are all professionals and you all serve the public and have responsibilities. That being said, though, my observation over the years, and I did pass the bar back in 1984, and I did practice law in the courts substantially more than when I became a state senator, having spent time in private practice as well as an appointment for several years as a special public defender. But sometimes cases, like so many things in life, do get better with time. So I understand the frustration with the backlog. And probably 90% of things should just be, you got to keep people on their toes and keep the business moving. But I would hate for people just to be looking at the numbers, because that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. And sometimes the litigants need to have time to stew in their own juices or figure certain things out themselves, or, to even pay counsel. It's not like you can just, the old days where people could just write a check and that's it. It's done over a time period and installments, and it's not like you can just resolve this in 6 months. It just, life doesn't work that way. Most people, at least in my neck of the woods, there's just a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have a ton of money in their savings account. Businesses may have downsized. You have the stresses of the pandemic. You may have had helpful checks from the government, but those are going to run out. If you go out and you need some sort of large appliance like a stove or a refrigerator, usually there's payments, or if you charge it, you do it on an installment. You pay the credit card over time. That's the way the process has to work. And so you bump into it now at dentists, you bump into it, thank God, the whole physician thing, it depends on your insurance. And I just think the court system has to come to terms with the fact that it can't just be easy in and easy out. And so I just hope that the jurists, I know it's going to be stressful, and I know that the people that monitor your cases say the backflow is bad. And to a large extent, it doesn't effectuate justice like we need it to, but it's not always bad. And I hope you guys don't get impatient in discerning those matters where a little time can go a long way. And I just want to congratulate you. And if you want to chime in on that, please feel free.
Sure. You make some very good points, Senator. And I would encourage you and your colleagues to occasionally come to, the courts around the state. Yes, in your district where you represent constituents, but you really get a flavor to sit in. Of course, we have public courts and you can appear with a mask, but to watch what it is that you're talking about in terms of parents needing counseling for their children. As you may be aware, since you're an attorney, I also have the ability, the statutory ability to order parents into counseling. And so sometimes what I do is I order that they select a therapist or counselor of their choice that is, accepts their insurance, to be able to work through some of these issues. So we are at a critical point in terms of the stigma around mental health and also getting people help. And I think your point is well taken that policymakers can help move that needle. With respect to the backlog, it was difficult to move business in this area of law and family law before COVID. And the reason why it's difficult is for exactly the reasons that you point out. It is not, no two cases are the same. They're not cookie cutter. And these are emotional, high charged issues. You're dealing with people's finances, those people living paycheck to paycheck. You're dealing with people's children. You're dealing, quite frankly, with their constitutional right to be parents. And so working through cases within the confines of the law and the legal system, it takes some time. And so there's a very delicate balance as a judge that I have to strike between moving a case and making sure that people get heard. So your points are very well taken.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll reach out to Judge Carroll and Judge Bizzuto. It's hard to really know what courts are open right now and what aren't. If I was going to go visit, right now I can't even drive out of my driveway because of the snow, and I've been at this hearing, so no visiting today. But on your other point, as a legislator who's been lucky enough to serve the public for 30 years now, on Asperger's, it used to, on the spectrum, people used to sort of keep that in the back. And now we're trying to raise the elevation on that and say, there's nothing to be hidden here, nothing to be ashamed of here. This is affecting a ton of people and we need to come to grips with it and take a humane and resource-filled approach to helping these families and these young people that have problems along the spectrum, especially with increased diagnoses. Same thing with problems for seniors and Alzheimer's. So I've seen things that were sort of like kept in the attic and tucked away and people didn't want to talk about, and now they're coming to the fore. And I actually think mental health issues and suicide ideations and things like that have, and my chairs and I are in agreement. I don't like drug dealers, but drug dependence and abuse is nothing that a prison cell is going to solve. We need treatment, we need rehabilitation if someone is an addict. And I think that the pandemic, these issues have all been there in various shapes and forms, but the pandemic has sort of elevated it. And we now realize that, hey, this is really pervasive and nothing to be shunned or kept in the attic, that we need to come to terms with it and turn people's lives around. And we are just doing a disservice every time someone is told they need counseling or treatment or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or some kind of support, and there's no one there to provide it. And so the pandemic does have some beneficial impacts, and I think that revelation might be one of them. But I'm going on too long, but I wanted to thank you. You're in an area that a lot of judges stay away from. You said as an attorney, I probably know, I'm sort of like Representative O'Day. I did like one divorce and I had to fight over a photo album and a garden hose. And I actually sat in a courthouse hallway in Hartford for like an hour debating that with the other counsel. And I said, when I got back to my office, I go, I am not doing this anymore. And sorry, I guess I took myself out of the mix there. But.
So many, it is, which is why I always encourage not only my representatives and at the General Assembly, but I encourage lawmakers to come to court to watch. Do not take my word for it. You have to come and watch what happens, and not just in family court, though that is really instructive as to what happens in court, but civil and housing and criminal. So you can see that way when we're in this vetting process, you have a much better idea of what litigants are experiencing and what judges are experiencing as well. But I agree with you. Your comments are well taken, and I will. I certainly agree that we had a mental health crisis prior to COVID, and it has just been brought to the fore with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you again, Your Honor, and congratulations, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kissel. I'll just say very briefly, you should be happy to know that Public Health is having a hearing as we speak, which I testified at this morning on that very issue of children's mental health. There are two bills there, Senate Bill 2 and Senate Bill 5001. But all four caucuses are playing a role in the work that's being done there. So there are all kinds of good ideas. And if anybody's interested, they should pay attention to what's happening there. Next, we'll hear from Representative Fishbein, followed by Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. It's good afternoon, Judge. How are you?
Good afternoon, I'm well.
I miss you. So I think over your term, I think I've been before you maybe 60 times.
At least.
Yeah. And, you know, it's the balance that we were sort of talking about with Judge Murphy before. I've seen you in the heat of battle, you know, with litigants, and then, you know, you make a ruling, you go on, bring the demeanor back to the courtroom and get the case processed. And, you know, I've seen it time and time and time again. And I will share with my colleagues that I think it was about 4 years ago, there was actually a visiting group of Ukrainian judges. Judge, remember this?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
And they
I
came to
do.
the Haven courthouse. I mean,
That's
I feel
right.
for those individuals as we know what's going on in
Yes.
the Ukraine now. And Judge Tindal brought me to be her show and tell lawyer for the day. And we got Judge Tindal was the judge, I was the lawyer. And, you know, it was very interesting learning about the Ukrainian legal system. But anyway, an area that I wanted to, because I know you being a judge and I have no problem with that. But one of the things that I've seen over the last 10 years is our services with regard to supervised visitation have basically dried up. And especially with the drug situation, you know, we get a lot of families. When I first started practicing 20 years ago, you know, usually it was the husband who had the alcohol and drug issues.
That is no longer just the case. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sad. I see a lot of moms that just should not be parenting kids. Is there something that we can do? Because I know, like, Be Healthy out of New Britain, they were in, I don't know if you were involved with them, but they would do supervised visitation. They'd actually issue a report for counsel, for the court and all that stuff. In Southern used to do that too, right? Is there something that we could do to assist you in that process?
You know, it's funny, Attorney Fishbein, that you mentioned that, because I have thought long and hard about, and you're familiar with some of my cases, even if you were not on them, you were in the courtroom waiting your turn to be heard with these cases where parents should have time with children, but should not do so without either just supervision by some other responsible adult or therapeutic supervision. And the resources are just so few or extremely expensive. So I have spent quite a bit of time fretting over this issue, and I can't think of, I just have not thought my way through how we do that. I don't know if it's a matter of insurance companies taking it on as a health issue. I don't know if throwing money at the problem to have these centers to do it is really a resolution. It really goes to what Senator Kissel was saying about the mental health crisis, which is it's a resource that we need in family court that we simply don't have. Southern used to do it, and I don't know why it was that they stopped, but keep in mind that was graduate students. And sometimes I think the cases got to be too much for the clinic. And, you know, you have some 20-year-old, 21-year-old graduate student who's learning how to be a clinician or learning how to be a social worker or training in this area. And you know the types of cases that we're dealing with in family court. And I don't know this, I'm just guessing. I think honestly, it got to be too much for the graduate students and the supervising professors that were involved to do that. But when that dried up, particularly in the areas that I've sat, it's just terrible. There are, I can't think of the name of the agency, and I'm pretty sure it was down in Stamford. There's someone who will, I forget what they call it. They will go with you on if you have visitation and they make a report, but it's like one agency. And even those are super expensive. The vast majority of the litigants cannot afford it. And I have spent a lot of time on the record going through with litigants and their attorneys who in the family could supervise, maybe an aunt, an uncle. I recently had a case where a great grandmother was doing the supervision, and that person now has a medical condition that prevents them from supervising these toddlers with this parent. So it's, I don't know the answer to your question. I think if there was a way perhaps to fund the colleges that we have, the state and community college systems that have, psychology and programs, social work programs that could do it. But it's truly, truly a problem. I wish I had an answer to how we could solve that, because so many of my cases need it.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we really need to work on, because you're either putting a child in a risky situation, and we all recognize that it's a risky situation, or you are not allowing that parent to have access to the child. And that in and of itself may help the child in the short term, but in the long term, no way.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah, it's an area that I'm focused on, and I'm certainly looking for answers. So
it might be worth contacting Southern Connecticut State University and talking with. They now have a family therapy clinic that has a parenting class that it's a 10-week, more intensive than the required 46B-69 subsection B 6-hour parenting class that's required. I've been referring parents to that. It might be worth policymakers contacting Southern to see how they set up the program, why it was successful, why it shut down, and seeing how to replicate that, and how the General Assembly can support that, or how the state can support that. Because as you and I well know, that would go a long way if just our state college systems or the medical schools in the state had some program like that. It would really go a long way to helping the citizens.
Well, thank you. And I just want to ask you what, because you and I have talked a lot about child support guidelines over the last many, many years. And I'm on the commission with regard to the child support guidelines. Any requests to change, modify anything?
How much time?
Okay, we'll do it offline. All right, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Graham Rising, Judge Tindal. I tell you, I have to first say that I'm not feeling as well as I should be, but I am feeling much better seeing you on full view of my laptop this morning. And I just wanted you to know that, because that is the honest to God's truth. There's something about energy, and your energy has really done something for me in the last few minutes that you've been answering questions with my colleagues. So first, I want to congratulate you on your nomination for reappointment. I think it is very, very well deserved. I'm very, very proud to have an opportunity to vote on that. And the question that I have for you is something that's near and dear to my heart, that I noticed on your questionnaire under question number 13, where it asked you to list any legal books or articles you have published. And I know this dates back to 2010, but it was a broader approach to domestic violence prevention. And I want you to kind of elaborate and bring us full circle on that, because of where we are right now in this pandemic, and the way domestic violence has been exacerbated, and the fact that you sit in family court. Could you just briefly speak to what you're seeing and how it relates to what you wrote about and published in 2010?
Sure. So as I'm sure you're aware, Representative Porter, and nice to see you. Thank you for your comments. I have a very strong background in domestic violence policy. I was a prosecutor specializing in domestic violence in Miami and Dade County State's attorneys. I've been a VAWA-funded legal aid attorney with domestic violence. So it's sort of the route that I took to the bench. I have to say that article that I wrote, I can't believe it was that long ago, was at a time when I was doing policy work in domestic violence at CCADV. And in the years since, I have been dismayed to read articles about domestic violence for this reason. If you were to look at news reports, articles, law review articles about domestic violence, and particularly in our state in terms of funding and familicide or femicide, or the suicide homicides we read about, funding can be higher or it can be lower. And for the most part, we have the same number of women being murdered by intimate partners, regardless of whether, there's lots and lots of money thrown at the problem, that particular year or a little less. VAWA continues to be the Violence Against Women Act, the federal law that of 1994, continues to be reauthorized every year, but the problem stays with us. And if you go back and look, it seems to me like, we're throwing all of this money towards this problem, but it's still here. What is that about? And in my humble opinion, here's what it's about. We must devote some resources to both intervention as well as preventing. In other words, stopping the problem before it starts. And we are not going to legislate our way through that problem. We are not. We've seen that you can pass laws, I have been on task forces, committees, I've worked with the legislature on laws that affect victims of domestic violence and their families. And from my perspective, we're still in the same place. I believe it's because we are simply rescuing people from the river and we're not going to the head of the river to figure out why people are falling in. And until we are committed to prevention as well as intervention, let me be clear, I am not at all suggesting that the work we are doing with domestic violence is not helpful and useful and saves lives and helps families and helps victims of domestic violence. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, are we gonna just keep rescuing people from the river? If we're really committed to this societal public health epidemic, we will go to the head of the river and devote some resources there as well.
Thank you for that. And I mean, as a survivor and thriver myself, I can certainly attest to what you said. You hit it right on the nail right on the head. And I've always said that, even with my ex-husband, I was able to forgive because I understood where he came from and what he had been subjected to. And that he came out of a home of domestic violence and there was never any wraparound services. He never had the capacity or the bandwidth or the services to process it. So you're absolutely correct with that. I think if we can go back and find out why people are abusing and what those circumstances look like and how we aid in that, we will see a drastic turnaround in what you're speaking to. So right now, when you have your cases come before you, are you seeing domestic violence show up in different ways than they have prior to COVID? Because I know that, what we've reported and gathered data on is, it's gone from the pushing and a couple of bruises here to, actual shootings and killings and strangulations. And it's become much more forceful and much more deadly than what we've seen.
Yeah, I cannot say that for me, from what I have seen, let's say in the last 3 years, that it has been more severe. From my perspective, it's much higher volume. I have never seen so many 46B15 restraining order applications. That refers to the statute, intimate family violence application for restraining order. I have never seen so many civil protection orders. And while that is stalking or sexual assault with not intimate partners, the level in the court where I am now, I've been there since September 7th. I probably average 6 a day on average, at least. Some of it is because people are trying to get into court sooner because of the statutory scheme that we have around, having the right to a hearing in 2 weeks. That gets you into court much more quickly than if you file a motion and have a resolution plan date with family relations. So some of it is legal maneuvering to get before the court. Still, even taking out those numbers, for me, it's not the severity, it's the volume. And that may be, Representative Porter, because I am used to the domestic violence. I don't want to say it like it's not important, but that's something that I'm keenly aware of. So I haven't seen an increase in severity. Long before the, I don't want to call it Jennifer's Law, but I think that's what we're referring to it as. I can't think of the statute right this second. Long before we added coercive control as a definition, I was seeing that. But again, I am attuned to that because of my prior work. So often people think of domestic violence as physical and injuries. And I can tell you, as an attorney, I had a client once who the boyfriend never put his hands on her, but he called her every 5 minutes. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but I had the phone records. Every 5 minutes he would call, where are you? What are you doing? He would follow around. I see you with this person. Never touched her. I've also had cases where there was, the financial control. So I'm aware that it's not simply physical or shooting or violence of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to be keenly aware of the, coercive control issues. And it's also, as a judge, often challenging to discern between domestic violence and people behaving badly. There's a difference. Every shoving argument or disagreement between intimate partners is not domestic violence, but that takes experience and skill and an openness to understand
Absolutely.
What is happening. So the short answer to your question is, I personally have not experienced an increase in severity. I have definitely seen an increase in volume.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That was quite helpful in the way that you were able to describe that. And I'll just end on this note. I can't think of a finer representation for the bench than you right now, because you are sitting before me. I'm looking at your questionnaire once again, kind of going over it, and the firms and the 10 most significant legal matters, and the bar committees and judicial committees and public offices and positions and service and community boards. I see you operating in your fullness. And I've had an opportunity to get to know you over the years, and I am truly proud. I am truly proud of the work that you're doing, and it gives me great hope for the bench and what the future looks like as well. So thank you so much for doing what you do, the way you do it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Blessings.
Thank you, Representative Porter. Comments or question from other members of the committee? Comment or question? Seeing none. Judge Tindal, it's always good to see you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Next, we'll be looking at Roman numeral 3 on the public hearing agenda, which are the senior judges. First up, we have the Honorable Julia L. Oriema of Cromwell. Judge, are you there?
Yes.
I still don't see you though. That's not possible. Well, if you raise your right hand, I'm sure you'll show up when you say yes. If you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the information you provide to this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
All right, you may make your statement.
Good afternoon, Senator Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, Senator Kissel, Representative Fishbein, and members of the Judiciary Committee. I was appointed first to the bench by Governor O'Neill in 1990. I have handled primarily civil matters for my judicial career, and I've written over 1,000 decisions. During my last 8 years, I was assigned to the Middlesex Judicial District as the civil presiding judge. In 2017, I went senior, and in 2018, I was transferred to the New Britain Judicial District, where I have also handled mainly civil matters. As I think my colleague Judge Geathers mentioned, we are a block assignment. So partly due to the pandemic and partly due to the block assignment, I've expanded my horizons in New Britain. I've done many tax appeals, pretrials, and some trials. During the pandemic, I did lots of small claims hearings, and I also presided over New Britain's first criminal jury trial since the pandemic. During the pandemic, you may know, senior judges and referees were not paid for a while. Some of my fellow senior judges and referees and I worked for free during the pandemic, and obviously wasn't full-time, but it was part-time, and I did it partly to preserve my sanity, but also mainly to help out my administrative judge, Judge Morgan, who is so hardworking that I was afraid she'd work herself to death if somebody didn't help her. So I do enjoy my job. Even though I do handle lots of similar cases, I find there's always a different fact pattern, a different legal issue. I would appreciate it to be appointed for another 8 years, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Judge. Are there comments or questions from any members? Representative Fishbein, followed by Senator Kissel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Your Honor. I just want to share that I was a clerk in New Britain way back in the late 90s when you were there. I had a water trespass case before you when you served in Middletown about a decade ago. I had a case up in Hartford with you, a very complex construction case about 5 years ago. And last year, no, it was earlier this year, I had a motions hearing with you. And I learned many years ago, don't make the judge mad, right? And, you know, something was filed the morning of the motions hearing. And, you know, you hadn't seen it before, and I made a suggestion, and I said, Judge, you know, I don't want to rule your courtroom. It's your courtroom, and, you know, but this is what I would suggest that you did. And you said, you know, it's my courtroom. I'm going to make the decision, right? And you heard the argument and all that stuff, and I, you know, got off the system. I was like, oh, I made the judge mad. Bad. But you ruled the right way, and I appreciate it. So, you know, that's what we need on the bench, and, you know, because you followed the law. And, you know, I've been along with you for many years now, and I've always known you to listen, to rule based upon the law. And I have no problem with voting in favor of you, and congratulations on your renomination. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Your Honor. It's been a number of times that you've come before us. I always pronounce your name Origema. I hope that's correct. Or
It is, but
Yeah.
Oriema is closer than most other pronunciations, so I take either one.
Well, Judge Origema, it's great to see you again. We had testimony last week from another jurist regarding the volunteering without pay. That's sort of our fault. I mean, I appreciate it, and I'm sure the judicial branch highly appreciated it, but you guys are highly skilled professionals, and you shouldn't have to like say, all right, we'll go a couple days without pay. Although it was indicated last week that some individuals were pretty keen about getting out of the house and finally going back into a courthouse. And if it's without pay, so be it. At least their spouses were appreciative if they had some. But you've handled everything over the years that I'm aware of, especially complex litigation. And I just want to say congratulations. It's great to see you again. And thank you for all you do for the people of the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. And I want to say I'm extremely impressed by Senator Winfield, yourself, Representative Fishbein, Representative Porter, and all the really good questions that you've all asked. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Judge. And I apologize for the name. And please, if I mess up anybody's name, it's fine. Correct me. I want to get your name right. Are there comments or questions from any other members of the committee?
It's that UConn thing.
That probably had some influence. Comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate your testimony and have a fine day.
You too. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we proceed,
Yes.
I know there are some of my members that are recusing themselves for participating in some of the judges here today, and just want to make that known for the record. We don't need to go through the whole list, but just for the purposes of what it needs to be.
Certainly, and when we vote, they should probably be on record for that, and whenever we get to that. But thank you for that notification, Representative Fishbein. Next, we will hear from the Honorable Michael G. Maronich of Monroe, and also I'll be turning over to Representative Staffstrom. Sorry, I was just talking to Representative Fishbein. Take it away, Representative Stasher.
Thought there was a coup d'etat.
I was going to say, it's not often I get confused to represent Fishbein, but it is a new year after all, so who knows. All right. Next up is the Honorable Michael J. Moranich of Monroe. Judge Moranich, good to see you again, sir. There you are. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
You can go ahead and make an opening statement, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Senators Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, and Blumenthal, Senator Kissel, and Representative Fishbein, members of the Judiciary Committee. First, I would like to express my thanks to Governor Lamont for nominating me for another term. I would be remiss if I did not thank my Bridgeport Juvenile Court family, the staff, the clerk, probation officer, state's attorney, public defenders, and panel attorneys who make the place run. I am completing my 16th year on the bench. I started out my time in criminal courts in the GA in Danbury and Bridgeport. I did a stint in juvenile court in Danbury and Norwalk for a couple of years. I moved to civil court in Danbury, where I completed an assignment. From there, I moved on to housing court in Bridgeport and Norwalk, then to assignments in housing in Norwalk and Waterbury before returning to juvenile court in Bridgeport in the fall of 2014. I did a term in Waterbury Juvenile Court, and I returned to Bridgeport Juvenile Court, where I've been the presiding judge for the last 4 years. Outside of the courthouse, I participated in the faculty of the Connecticut Judges Institute and had the pleasure of presenting to the judges courses in particular areas of juvenile law with Judges Eschuk, Judge Grogans, and Judge Westbrook. During the pandemic, Bridgeport and Hartford were the only 2 juvenile courts open in the state. I worked as frequently as I could, taking turns in the rotation with Judges Berlant, Conway, and Marcus. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve as a judge of the Superior Court, and I look forward to reappointment and the challenges that lie ahead, and I would be happy to entertain any questions from this committee.
Thank you, Judge. Questions from the committee? Questions from the committee? Judge, I don't see any, but I know certainly you are a stalwart of the Bridgeport Courthouse, several stints down there. I know we crossed paths when you were doing the housing docket down there for a while. And just want to thank you for your long service to the state, and congratulations on your renomination.
Thank you.
Next up will be the Honorable Sheridan L. Moore of Beacon Falls. Judge Moore, do I see you? Oh, there we go. If you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you'll provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you, Judge. You can go ahead and make your opening statement, please.
Good afternoon to the co-chairs, Senator Winfield and Representative Stafford, as well as the ranking members, Senator Kissel and Representative Fishbein, and the other members of the Judiciary Committee. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. I especially want to thank Governor Lamont for nominating me for reappointment, and it is my pleasure to appear before you today. I have served on the Connecticut bench since 1998, some 24 years. Since my last appointment, or my last appearance before this committee, I've had the privilege of serving 7 years at the Meriden Superior Court, where I handled criminal, civil, housing, family matters, and trials. I took senior status in 2018 and I am currently assigned to the Waterbury Judicial District. I'm humbled by the opportunity to continue in this capacity and would welcome any questions that you may have for me at this time.
Thank you, Judge Moore. Questions from the committee? Questions from the committee? Seeing none, appreciate you being with us today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we'll turn to our renominations for state referee. We will start with the Honorable Arnold W. Aronson of Avon. Judge Aronson?
Yes.
All right, sir, if you could raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information provided to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
Great. Thank you, sir. If you could make your opening statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Judiciary Committee, in particular, Senator Winfield and Representative Staffstrom as co-chairs, Vice Chair Senator Flexer, Representative Blumenthal, and ranking members of the committee, Senator Kissel and Representative Fishbein. I would like to thank Governor Ned Lamont for recommending my reappointment as a state referee. I have been a judge for 40 years, and I've sat in the Hartford JD, I've sat in New Haven, Litchfield, New Britain. I've sat in the Housing Court in Hartford and New Britain, and I've been sitting in the tax court for the past 20 years. I have been a member of the National Conference of State Tax Judges, which I have worked on the planning committee. Basically, we have judges from all over the country who are in the tax field who work together to develop programs to benefit our understanding of the tax work. The National Conference did award me with a National Judge of the Year, and I appreciated that. The 1992, the legislature in Connecticut created the tax court, and I was appointed the first presiding judge of that court, and I stayed on the tax court until the pandemic. At the height of the pandemic, as Judge Oriema had mentioned, number of us had tax cases that were carried over. And even though we were not getting paid for the effort, at least I concluded all of the tax cases that I had, including one which was a 2-day trial, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I was sitting home on my computer. I had the 2 lawyers from good firms that were in their office. I had the witnesses were in their offices, and we went out for 2 days, just as if we were in a courtroom in the Britain. So I thought certainly doing remote cases was a big help, and I thought very efficient way of addressing the issues that we have in the Judicial Department. I also want to thank the, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Chief Justice Richard Robinson, who appointed me as a judge trial referee for 1 year from July 1, 2021 until next June 30th of 2022. I've thoroughly enjoyed being a judge for all this time, serving the people of the state of Connecticut, and I hopefully intend to, or I hope to continue my service as a state referee. And I will be happy to respond to any question which any of the members of this committee have.
Thank you. Senator Kissel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judge Aronson, it's really great to see you. I think you went to the bench 2 years before I passed the bar and started practicing law. And before you took on the tax situation and adjudications, I believe I had some matters before you. And my recollection is that they were all very positive. And you've been helping the people of the state of Connecticut in many, many ways. And again, as I've said, those folks that volunteered to work without pay, I think that was exceptional service to the people of the state of Connecticut, and I thank you. And you have a special skill set and dedication if you get great joy out of a 2-day trial on a tax issue. And God forbid we lose a jurist with your caliber and your dedication to such a sort of an interesting area of the law that your expertise is probably unparalleled. So congratulations, and thank you for willing to serve the people of the state of Connecticut once more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Kissel. And I have to tell you, money is not the issue. It's the fact that we're able to serve the people of the state of Connecticut in completing the job that we're elected to do or appointed to do. And so I appreciate your comments, but it is really a thrill to be part of the judicial system.
Well, thank you. I say that about our salary as legislators as well. Money's not the issue. It's the service to the public.
We all do it. Thank you.
Judge, let me ask you real quick, obviously with your breadth of experience on the tax court, the Judiciary Committee is not taking something up on this topic this year, but I feel like in the last year or two, I've heard more complaints than at least I had heard in the past about the tax court from municipalities. That it seems that it has, at least the perception by some municipalities is it's become sort of a place where if you're a large landowner, you appeal, you get up to the tax court, they're going to knock at least something off. That the tax court is going to split the baby between the appraisal the town put on and whatever the landowner's number is, that it ends up somewhere in between. So if you take it up to the tax court, you're going to get some sort of tax savings. Municipality then is sitting there having to pay back in many respects tax revenue that it collected. I'm just curious whether you have a comment or reaction to that. Obviously, I'm not talking about any individual cases per se. I don't practice in the tax court, but I have heard this complaint from several municipalities over the last few years, and trying to figure out whether there's any juice to it.
I'm surprised, really, because last November, I was invited by the Connecticut Association of Assessing Officers to attend their annual meeting at the AquaTurf. And I was invited because I there was receiving an appreciation award from the assessors for the work that I've done on the tax court and for the fairness in which I've treated the assessors as well as the other parties to those cases. So I'm not quite sure I understand why that complaint came. I certainly don't do that when I hear cases, and I'm concerned about the perception that people who
and I don't mean not to cut you off, but I don't mean you specifically. Like I said,
I understand
this
that.
is something I've heard over the last particular year or two, actually. So
and it shouldn't be. I have to tell you, I haven't been the presiding judge of the tax court for some time, but I have been assigned to the tax court until this pandemic. So I don't have that kind of feedback or control, but I'm amazed that exists, and it should.
Okay. No, I guess just kind of on that point, the standard or the burden, I think, what is the standard or the burden that someone challenging their taxes needs to prove?
The standard of burden is the taxpayer. The town does not have any burden to justify the assessment on the property, but the taxpayer does have the burden. But once the town puts in their evidence as to justify their assessment, then they become subject to the same issue, is that what's the credibility of the evaluation that they're submitting to the court. And so we start out with the burden. But I have to tell you, I don't start out a case saying, oh, you have the burden to prove your case. I tell them that what we're there to is determine what the fair market value of the property is. And that's the issue. And so what I'm listening to is a justification for arriving at a particular valuation and how it measures our standard, as the legislature has said, it's fair market value, and that's the determination.
Okay. No, like I said, the reason I ask is we did get a bill proposal this year to look at, frankly, replacing the tax court altogether. Like I said, we're not moving forward with that, but appreciate your insights on this. Further questions or comments from the committee? Further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, appreciate you being with us, Judge, and thank you again for your long service to the state. All right, next up will be the Honorable Luis Lesoff Tanzer of West Hartford. Judge Tanzer, there we go. Raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information to provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. If you have an opening statement, you can go ahead and make it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. Senator Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, Senator Kissel, and Representative Fishbein, and the remaining distinguished members of the committee. My thanks to Governor Lamont for my renomination, and to this committee for its consideration to allow me to continue as a state referee. In 1998, I was honored to be appointed a judge in the Superior Court, and I have been twice reappointed. My assignments have been mainly in Hartford and New Britain, but I've also been assigned to Enfield, Hartford Housing, the Meriden Block assignment, and Juvenile Court. The matters before me have included the whole panoply, a smattering of criminal, housing, juvenile, but mainly many years in civil. In 2010, at age 70, I, as required by law, retired, or was retired. I continued to work as a judge trial referee in New Britain, handling again mainly civil matters, including trials, administrative appeals, tax appeals, pre-trials, and appellate pre-argument conferences, which have been referred to as PACs. In September of this year, I was assigned to Hartford Judicial District, where I work 1 day a week, handling hearings and damages on the calendar. Probably spend another day, day and a half, working at home to prepare the cases and to write opinions. The work continues to be rewarding. It's always interesting, and there's always something to learn. As others have stated, we are mindful and very grateful for the support of staff, clerks, marshals, and the technical team, particularly in these unusual times. I welcome your consideration and hopefully your approval so that I may continue to serve the people of Connecticut. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Representative O'Day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hello, Your Honor.
Hello.
I just want to say hello and thank you for your years of wonderful service. I had the honor of trying a case in front of you many years ago, and you were outstanding. And I was a young trial attorney who was a little more aggressive than I probably should have been at times with my opponent, but you were fantastic and did a great job. And I just want to thank you so very much for your service to the state of Connecticut, and appreciate you the opportunity to say hello and thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. Yes.
Senator Kissel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, very briefly, congratulations, Judge Cesar. It's great to see you again. The fact that you're willing to continue to serve the people of the state of Connecticut as a trial referee now in your early 80s is fantastic. And clearly you look fabulous. There must be something about being a jurist that just keeps the blood going, because your willingness to continue to do this when so many other people probably want to just simply retire and not tackle new issues says a lot. And, you know, it reaffirms that as long as people want to continue to give back in some way, shape, or form, they're still highly valuable to our society. And I would hate to lose your adept observations and I don't want to necessarily say institutional knowledge, but just your life experiences and your knowledge as a jurist over all these years. So congratulations, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And may I just add that we are humbled to give, but also there's so much that we receive back. Thank you all.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from the committee? If not, Judge, congratulations on your renomination and thank you very much for your service to the state.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to our nominations for Family Support Magistrate. We'll start with the Honorable David A. D. of Avon. Magistrate D.
Good afternoon.
You may raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information provided this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or on a penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. You can go ahead and make your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Co-Chair Winfield, Co-Chair Staffstrom, Vice Chairs Blumenthal and Flexer, Ranking Members Kissel and Fishbein, and distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee. I am honored to be before you here today. I would first like to thank Governor Lamont for giving me this opportunity by nominating me for what would be my 5th term as a family support magistrate. I would also like to thank the various employees and members of the magistrate team, I would call them, that assist me on a daily basis, including the monitors, marshals, and clerks. I also would like to thank the dedicated employees of the sister agencies that assist the magistrates on a daily basis, that being the Department of Social Services, Assistant Attorney Generals, and Support Enforcement Services. As some of you may or may not know, magistrates tend to be somewhat nomadic. I'm presently assigned to the Hartford, Waterbury, and New Britain judicial districts. It has been my privilege to serve our state as a family support magistrate since 2008, and I would be most grateful for your support and approval for an additional term. With that, I am happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. Senator Kissel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Magistrate D, it's great to see you again. Congratulations. Just for those of us, and actually for my own edification, and I know we've gone long on this hearing today, but very briefly, like what distinguishes a family court magistrate from, or family support magistrate from a regular judge as far as your average daily work? What distinguishes it?
Well, it's the type of cases that we hear. In addition, the magistrate court tends to be more of a short calendar on a daily basis. We essentially hear unmarried couple matters, and that would be couples that have never been married and post-divorce matters. So, for example, we hear establishment matters. So if a couple is in the hospital and the parties are together, the parents are together and they sign acknowledgement of parentage, the parties can come before, the parents can come before the magistrate. We find a duty to support and enter child support. There's also an establishment by way of paternity. If the parents are not together or paternity is disputed, the parties would come into magistrate court. They have the right to, genetic testing, potentially a lawyer, and we can enter judgment of paternity on that matter and move forward in establishing a child support order. If the order needs to be modified or enforced, we handle those matters. The post-divorce cases are as follows. Once a divorce is over and orders are entered, the parents can sign up for services with the state, and they can utilize the magistrate court to modify, change, or enforce the order. What we don't do, unless there's an agreement, is anything that deals with access with the child or the children.
And Your Honor, would you say you have mostly pro se litigants before you, or is it a lot of counsel?
No, mostly self-represented litigants, yes.
And after all these years, do you still find it fulfilling?
I do so, very much so, on a daily basis. I look forward to coming to work.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Further questions or comments from the committee? Further questions or comments? If not, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your reappointment.
Thank you.
Next up will be the Honorable Michael L. Ferguson of Meriden. Magistrate Ferguson. If you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great, thank you. And you can feel free to go ahead and make your opening statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Winfield, Chairman Stratford, Strastrom, Ranking Member Kissel, Ranking Member Fishbein, and members of the Judiciary Committee. I am honored to be here before you today, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. Thank you for your consideration. I would also like to thank Governor Lamont for nominating me for reappointment to a fourth term as a family support magistrate. Since my last appointment, I've been appointed to the position of Chief Family Support Magistrate and assigned to Bridgeport, Derby, Hartford, Meriden, New Haven, Norwich, Putnam, and Waterbury. During this past appointment, I've also presided over cases in Danbury, Middletown, Rockville, and Torrington. I am currently assigned to Waterbury, Derby, Meriden, and Putnam. It has been an honor and privilege to serve the citizens of the state of Connecticut for the last 10+ years as a family support magistrate. I would be most grateful for your support and approval for a fourth term. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Given your assignments, I'm just wondering, how do you handle that as far as geography? I mean, like with a Superior Court judge, they get kicked around all over the place. And a lot of times what I found is that the initial assignments tend to be far from home. Recently, there was an individual that I know very closely, became a judge, lives in Suffield. And I think his first assignment was in Bridgeport. So that's quite the commute. But you just listed 4, I think one was Derby, one's Putnam. I mean, what's your week like? Are you just zipping around all 4 corners of the state, or how does that work?
Yes, pretty much. For example, I live in Meriden. So for example, this Tuesday I was in Norwich, and yesterday, Wednesday I was in Meriden, and then yesterday I was in Putnam. And so there's quite a bit of travel involved, but I love the job and I love serving the people for the state of Connecticut.
And again, as Magistrate D had indicated, it's a variety of things, but it's mostly pro se.
Correct. Majority, I would say probably 80% or more are self-represented litigants. So it's mostly pro se.
And what do you find, like, why do you enjoy it so much? I mean, do you see positive conclusions of your rulings, or is there a lot of research involved? What is the aspect of your job? It's a little mysterious as far as I am concerned, because I just haven't bumped into that type of practice.
Well, I find it rewarding because basically a lot of people that appear in front of us, they're unmarried couples. And for us, when we make our decisions, we're able to help the families, but more importantly, the children within the state of Connecticut. And so the hardest challenge, at least in famous court, magistrate court, is to be patient and allow the litigants to speak, because we don't have a lot of attorneys that appear before us that know the practice book, the rules of evidence. So in our court, the parties, this is their day in court. And some of them think that this is, they're in front of Judge Judy or people's court, and it's not. So you kind of have to let them present their case, and it may not be the way an attorney would present the case, but after you let them speak for a while and being extremely patient, you find out what exactly their issue is, and then you kind of resolve it. And the biggest thing that I find is allowing the people to talk. And once they talk, whether they disagree with your decision or not, they're happy because they were able to be heard.
Well, I want to thank you, Your Honor. I mean, you're essentially chief cook and bottle washer, and a lot of travel. I would get lost. I mean, my aide keeps trying to tell me how to use my cell phone as a GPS, but I've got a ways to go. But I do very well with landmarks, but from Derby to Meriden to Putnam, a lot of wear and tear on the car, that's for sure. But I want to compliment you in particular because you're exhibiting huge amounts of patience, dealing with mostly pro ses every day, not an easy task. And the fact that you're dealing positively with our young people and children, that's a huge thing. And the fact that, I mean, I've been lucky enough to be on this committee for 28 years now, and I've never, ever in my recollection heard a complaint about a family support magistrate. And so you have a difficult constituency to serve, and yet you're doing it really well, and you have to exhibit, I mean, you have to know the law, but it also exhibit huge amounts of patience and deal with pro ses, and obviously you're getting the job done. So thank you for what you do for the people of the state of Connecticut. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you for your kind words.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Chief Magistrate. Good to see you. I have to say that I do concur with Senator Kissel. You have quite the challenge before you, and what I've been able to witness and learn about the way you do your work, Magistrate Ferguson, is quite impressive, and it is a breath of fresh air for me. I've been in family courts. I've had family members that have had to deal with family court. I wish I could say that every experience has been a good one, but it has not. And what I've learned from you and just conversations and witnessing some of your techniques is that you truly do bring a breath of fresh air to what has traditionally been done in family court. And it gives a lot of people, me in particular, great hope in seeing us move forward in a way that really does recognize the humanity of the people that come before you in family court. And it is true, a lot of folks that come before you are not married, but I believe in a nuclear family, and it doesn't necessarily constitute two parents living in the same home. And you have to have some kind of skills to be able to bring those folks together for the good of the children. And I think that is the primary concern. So I just wanted to take a brief moment to, congratulate you on your nomination for reappointment, but also to thank you, a heartfelt and a sincere thank you to the way you do this, to the way you do the work and what you bring to the bench in the way of a real life model.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. I was just waiting for the representative to mute, but I just wanted to put that on the record. You certainly are doing a great job. I wish you much continued support, and looking forward to what you continue to do and how you encourage and influence judges coming behind you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
And thank you for your kind words. Appreciate it. Good seeing you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative. Further questions or comments from the committee? If not, Magistrate Ferguson, congratulations on your renomination, and thank you for your service.
And thank you.
All right, next we'll move on to the Honorable Frederick Gilman of East Hampton. Magistrate Gilman is there. If you could unmute, there we go. And if you might raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. And if you could go ahead and make your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman Winfield, Chairman Staffstrom, Ranking Members Senator Kissel, Representative Fishman, and the distinguished members of the Judiciary Committee. I am honored to be before you today. I would like to thank Governor Lamont for nominating me for reappointment as a family support magistrate. Presently, I am assigned to Putnam, Norwich, Britain, Middletown, and Hartford. It is a privilege to serve the people and the state of Connecticut these past 11 years as a family support magistrate. I would be most grateful to this committee and the General Assembly for your approval of my nomination as a family support magistrate. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have of me.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the committee? If not, congratulations on your reappointment, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Everyone have a nice day.
Okay, we will move on to the Honorable Katherine Hutchinson of Andover to be a family support magistrate referee. Magistrate Hutchinson, thought I saw you there. If you could unmute, yes, and raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information you provide to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. And if you have an opening statement, feel free to make it.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman Winfield, Chairman Stafford, Staffstrom.
There you go.
Yeah. A ranking member Kissel, ranking member Fishbein, and the Judiciary Committee. Thank you very much for your consideration today. It's an honor to appear before you. I also want to thank Governor Lamont for nominating me for reappointment as a family support referee. In 1986, the legislature passed legislation establishing the Family Support Magistrate Division of the Superior Court. In January of 1987, I was fortunate to be appointed one of the 6 original family support magistrates. Served as a family support magistrate, including a number of years as the chief family support magistrate until 2008, when I became a family support referee. Since my appointment as a family support referee in May of 2017, for the period of time until September 2017, I was assigned to the Judicial District of Windham. Since September of 2017, magistrates have not had a regular assignment, but are assigned on an as-needed basis whenever there is a vacancy or a position or a court docket that needs to be covered, and there's not a family support magistrate available to cover those dockets. Because of the reduction in the court activity beginning in March of 2020 due to COVID, family support referees were not assigned to cover dockets, and with rare exceptions, until the end of April of 2021. Since April of 2021, I've sat in, been assigned to cover dockets in Meriden, Hartford, Putnam, and Norwich. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to serve the people of the state of Connecticut, particularly the children of the state of Connecticut, for these many years. And I would be grateful for the opportunity to be able to continue to serve as a family support referee. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Of course. Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you for your public service again to the children of the state of Connecticut. You're probably one of the, if not the longest serving jurists to come before us. And as a family support magistrate, I still call you a jurist. Definitely fulfilling a very valuable role, one that's probably unsung, but the fact that we don't get huge amounts of constituent complaints and that you're dealing with pro se litigants, as Representative Porter so eloquently put, if they're not cohabitating, to try to get two folks on the same page regarding their children is not an easy task. But again, the betterment, the best interest of the child should always be front and center. And just the fact that you went through with your opening statement and explained to us that there was a lull during the early stages of the pandemic is helpful to know. And I just want it on the record. Thank you so much for all you've done for the people of the state of Connecticut. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're very welcome. It's really been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Magistrate Hutchinson, for your service, and congratulations on your renomination here.
And I apologize for my misstatement of the name.
Oh, it happens quite frequently. Don't worry.
Yeah,
you're
he
not
tells
alone.
us that all the time, and now you just proved it. That's all.
Well, I say it helps because then when I butcher other people's, I don't feel quite as bad about it. So
very well.
All right. We are moving on to our last nominee, and this is to be a full-time member of the Board of Pardons and Paroles. It's Deborah Smith Palmieri of Guilford.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. If you could raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm, as the case may be, that the information provided to this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. And Ms. Smith Palmieri, I believe you were before us not too long ago. Is that correct?
It's almost a year ago. It's just around this time last year that I was appointed to a part-time position.
Okay. Well, if you have an opening statement or anything to add to what we did a year ago, feel free, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Senator Winfield, Representative Staffstrom, Representative Blumenthal, Senator Kissel, Representative Fishbein, and members of the Judiciary Committee. Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Smith Palmieri. In early 2021, I was confirmed by this committee as a part-time member of the Board of Pardons and Paroles. It is my honor and privilege to be nominated by Governor Lamont to a full-time position on the Board of Pardons and Paroles. I thank the committee for your consideration. By way of background, I am a lifelong resident of Connecticut. My entire career has been in public service, specifically in the field of criminal justice. I worked as a bail commissioner in New Haven for several years. I continued my work in criminal justice as a federal probation officer with the U.S. District Courts, where I worked for 28 years. I have been fortunate in my more than 30 years in the criminal justice system. I've been fortunate in my more than 30 years in criminal justice, including my time on the board, to be a part of a system that has been progressive in its approach to reducing incarceration, a system that recognizes the benefits of balancing punishment with rehabilitation. Today, criminal justice agencies, including the Board of Pardons and Paroles, use its validated risk assessment tools that include evidence-based practices, which provide the best opportunity for offender change and rehabilitation. My criminal justice experience has taught me to trust the science, to use the assessment results as a framework for decision-making. There is no longer this idea of a gut feeling when determining an individual's risk to the community. By utilizing risk assessments and evidence-based programming and resources, inmates are afforded the best opportunity for successful reentry. As a member of the Board of Pardons and Parole, I have participated in all types of hearings that the board is authorized to hear. The Board of Pardons and Paroles determines the suitability of an inmate's release from incarceration and the erasure of an individual's record. In parole cases, the board uses a validated risk assessment tool to identify high risk factors that may have contributed to offenders' criminal conduct. The board considers the programs completed by an inmate that have been identified to reduce these risk factors. Programs targeting an inmate's risk and needs is paramount in successful reentry, reducing recidivism, and community safety. In addition to programs completed, the board must also consider the impact to the victim, the likelihood of future harm to the victim, to the community, the inmates, or the applicant's rehabilitative efforts, and their motivation to change. As a board member, I ask questions that will provide insight into the inmate's future decision-making. In all cases, the board is trying to determine evidence of change and a motivation to change. The Board of Pardons and Paroles conducts important work. Chairman Carlton Giles and Executive Richard Sparaco provide ongoing training to all board members in all aspects of policy, treatment, and victims' rights, just to name a few. To conclude, the mission of the Board of Pardons and Parole is to facilitate the successful reintegration of suitable offenders into the community. I want to assure this committee that if confirmed, I will draw from my criminal justice experience and my experiences as board member thus far to make decisions in support of the mission and that support successful reentry and public safety. I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to continue my career in the field of criminal justice. I am happy to answer any questions.
Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. I do remember you from last time about a year ago, and I think we're still in the benefit of the doubt stage. I haven't gotten any complaints, so I trust that you're doing good work over there. But I wanted to ask you just briefly, what's the backlog like? I'm getting people that are contacting me. I had somebody contact me the other day who said that they applied 4 months ago. They haven't gotten a hearing date. They're being told that their package is in records review. And they're like, help, please help. So can you tell me what's going on?
Sure. I'll try. Just for clarification, are you speaking of a parole application or possibly a pardon application?
It is a pardon. I don't get involved with parole applications. So all my stuff is pardon.
I don't really have a working knowledge of the cases as they're being prepared. I know that the board receives the case once it is all completely put together. I do know that there is a lot involved in completing that application, and the board, the parole officers work really hard to try and gather as much information as possible so that the board has all the information they need to make the best decision. Sometimes it takes a while to get paperwork. I sometimes hear them on the phone trying to get paperwork, multiple requests for documents that could be older. But in terms of the backlog, I really don't feel that I am the best person to speak to that.
And an individual who needs a pardon for employment purposes, is there a procedure by which that application can be put on the top of the pile, or is it just first come, first served?
Again, Representative Fishbein, I apologize. I don't really have a knowledge of how they prioritize applications.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair, no problem. As I said, I haven't heard any problems, and you haven't been on there that long. So congratulations on your reappointment or renomination. So thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Palmieri, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
I think it will be a great benefit to the state, your appointment. Your expertise in the area is hard to match. And I've worked with you and you've answered questions for me in the past on the side, and I really appreciate it. And you will be a great addition to this position. So I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much.
Senator Haskell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Palmieri, thank you for your time and for your service to the state. I was reading the news recently that the Board of Pardons and Paroles recently commuted the sentences of 11 men who were convicted of a crime before the age of 25. And I was wondering if, obviously not in reference to these individual cases, but generally speaking, is the board, it seems from afar that the board is increasingly embracing the established science that there is important neurological development that happens up to the age of 25. So I'm wondering if you could provide some insights as to how you feel about the board's actions, what you think the future might hold for the Board of Pardons and Paroles with regard to those who committed an offense in their youth.
That's a great question. And unfortunately, a number of the applicants that I have reviewed for commutation were under the age of 21 when the offense was committed, some as young as 15, sentenced to a tremendous amount of time, more time in jail than they've lived their life in the community. I think we all know, and it's been proven, this the science of juvenile brain development, that a juvenile's brain does not fully develop until the age of 25. I think we can, in examining the commutations that have come before the board, it is clear the change in attitude, in sociability, the impulsive, reckless behavior. You can almost see it in the facility as they have matured in their years incarceration. So to go back to your original question, I think the board looks at that very closely, whether it's through commutations or the 1584 hearings that we also provide.
Thank you so much for that answer. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kissel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. What is a 1584 hearing? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a hearing for an individual if they've committed the offense prior to the age of 18. There's, again, criteria that they must meet even to have a hearing such as that. I don't have all the criteria in front of me to go through that with you, but that's sort of the premise of it in a nutshell. I can tell you, as a newer board member, most hearings that I do, I go back to our policies as I go through the cases for review to see, make sure that what we're doing is in line with all of our expectations.
Very good, and I appreciate that answer. And along the lines of what Senator Haskell questioned about, I do recall, it seems to me recently, but it's probably 4 or 5 years ago now. Judge Coleman, but then Senator Coleman and I grappled for a couple of years at least. I sort of dug in my heels on this one, but eventually we reached a compromise and an agreement that was in comportment with recent United States Supreme Court decisions that required review of certain very, very long sentences for minors. And so that is the law of the land. There is some push to try to get that age moved higher. I have some concerns regarding that. I don't think we're going to address that issue this year. But we are mindful of not only developmental issues regarding cognitive development for young people and young adults, but also the movement of United States Supreme Court decisions on this issue. So thank you for all your time and effort. And yes, science is moving us all the time in so many fields. And it's, but don't ignore your intuition. Sometimes it's right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from the committee? Further questions or comments? If not, Ms. Smith-Palmieri, thank you for being with us, and congratulations on your renomination to continue to serve.
Thank you very much.
All right. That concludes our nominees. I do believe, Madam Administrator, we have a few members of the public signed up to testify.
We do. The first one on the list would be Melissa Linden.
Okay. Do we need, are they in? Do we need
They
to?
should be in the room.
Okay.
They have been promoted to panelists.
All
I
right.
have some instructions on what to do. There we go.
All right. There we go. All right. So first up, we're moving on to our public hearing portion, public testimony. First up will be Melissa Linden. And folks, and just a reminder, this is our first sort of public hearing. At this point, the rules of the committee are members of the public are afforded 3 minutes. There is a timer, so at the end of the 3 minutes, I will ask you to wrap up for us. And if there are members who have questions, they'll be permitted to do so at that time. All right, Ms. Linden, if you could just unmute yourself. I'm sorry, there was some background noise, so I did mute you, but.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, and thank you for the committee of having me. I don't know the proper way to address it, but I'm sorry, this was spur of the moment. And I'm just going to read a brief story about my situation. I come before this committee today as a constituent of Connecticut and as a native girl who's born and bred from this state, with the understanding that the fabric of Connecticut's heritage is embedded with the Constitution. I don't come before this committee as a conspiracy theorist or a wannabe lawyer or even so much overcome with emotion, as many high-ranking officers of the court may lead you to believe. I sit before this committee just a girl from Connecticut who's extremely concerned of how Connecticut's justice system is playing out in our courts. I say this with the understanding that the US law dictates a judge is a trustee of the public express irrevocable trust in the Constitution that all attorneys, commercial officials, public officers, and judicial officers as trustees possessing a superior knowledge of the Constitution is their obligation to enforce the United States Constitution according to Article 3 and Article 6. Highlighting Section 14 of the Connecticut Constitution that establishes the citizens have a right in a peaceful manner to assemble for their common good and to apply to those invested with the powers of government for redress of grievances or proper purpose by petition, address, or remedy. Which brings me to why I'm before you today. To start off by giving you a brief history of my involvement with the Connecticut court system is complicated at best and too vast to do over a 3 or 5 minute time slot. But in its complicated nature, my matter has become across 2 of the nominees before you today. They are as follows: Honorable Cesar Noble of West Hartford and Honorable Rupal Shah of West Hartford. My experience with Honorable Shah of West Hartford became when I was ejected and held responsible for my deceased mother's alleged foreclosure by Household Realty Corporation via an agent called US Bank NA LSF Master Trust Participation, a closed company since 2016 with a revoked license federally by the state of California. This is involving a housing matter, a landlord-tenant court, matter participation, closed company since in housing landlord-tenant court, CV 216017457 involving 498 Addison Road. Attorneys from Dave Pitt, me, who received 10 million in PPP, Shipman Goodman, who received 8 million in PPP, law offices of Bruce Camillo, 18,000 K in PPP, and the law offices of Anthony Aponte, a counselor who has a formal matter, who's been involved in past matters pertaining to this, commandeered the court and its judges to execute their lies. Justice Shah is one of the judges commanded by the attorney's lies in my matter. And now I live with the ramification of her mistake. In addition to
Ms. Linden, we're well over the 3 minutes. I just let me see if I understand. So is
say what she did, then I'll just say the two judges. So it's really, because it's a serious matter and it's something that needs to be addressed by the state of Connecticut. And I understand there are time restrictions, but unfortunately, sometimes I think if you guys could understand where I'm coming from and just listen to what I'm saying, and then at that point, you can understand where this sits, because it's a very serious matter.
No, I understand. So the issue is Judge Shaw.
I mean, I'm testifying from Canada, and I'm about to put political asylum in over this matter to the country of Canada.
Okay.
So I would really like, and I would really hope that you could respect me, because nobody in your court has given me a voice. And I've asked the proper procedure. And this is something that the Judiciary Committee has to address.
I'm trying to get there. So is the concern that Judge Shaw presided over, did Judge Shaw preside over the foreclosure matter? Is that?
No, the problem is Judge Shaw ejected me on a foreclosure matter from my mother's foreclosure in 2013. And what the problem is that I've never had a mortgage or I've never had a rental agreement in Connecticut. I lived 6 months in Connecticut and 6 months. So I was done that. I wasn't given a hearing. I was lied, like attorneys lied to these courts, in tax appeal courts, in foreclosure courts. They didn't even honor federal protection orders issued by your federal court. They made me responsible for something that's not mine. They took my home.
Ma'am, let me.
All in one day. I had a Marshal Lisa Stevenson. I had her swap my house with 5 locksmiths based on an default order of possession she garnered in housing court, and told all my stuff.
Ma'am, can you give me that?
I hold the house too. That was never foreclosed on.
Ma'am, can you give me the docket number again? Can you give me the I need you to unmute yourself at this point, but if you can give me the docket number again, please.
CV 116017 457.
Slow down. CV 11.
HHD CV 116017 457. And by the way, I have another docket because you're issuing orders in my dead parents' name consistently for the last 10 years in federal and state court. It's gross.
Okay.
And it's in another docket. It's been presented to you so many times.
Okay.
And judges and lawyers lie.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I think there may be a question from Representative Dubitsky. Representative.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming in. I understand this is a very emotional issue for you. Many people who are in court and have decisions made feel as you do. Let me just ask you. Hold on. Let me ask you a question, please. Did you have an attorney in these cases?
No. No attorney will take my case. I've contacted over 100 throughout because they say it's judges. And just let me tell you, and I'm going to read a statement that the judge said about me.
No, don't read the statement. Don't read the statement. Don't read.
I submitted a simple case flow. To clarify, if Court Susan Zeno ever worked or recorded orders pertaining to Household Realty Corporation versus Barbara Linden in 17457. In addition to Justice Shah confirming that she has reviewed defendant's complaint and exhibits, Justice Shah responded with this case is not proper.
I can't, all right. Well, ma'am, wait, everybody wait. There's a lot of background noise, I think, frankly, coming from both the questioner and from the witness. So I'm having trouble following. Representative Dubitsky, do you have a follow-up question? I think your first question was a yes or no. Did she have an attorney? I think she answered that. Do you have a follow-up question to that?
No, Mr. Chairman, that was the only question I had.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else with questions or comments? Questions for Ms. Linden? Further questions for Ms. Linden? If not, ma'am, I thank you for being with us. We'll certainly look up that docket number you provided us. Appreciate you providing that to the committee. And feel free to submit in writing anything additional you'd like. All right, next, we are going to move on to Nicola Kuna, who is our next person to testify. Ms. Kuna. Ms. Kuna, you're on mute. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you to the committee for allowing me the time and opportunity to be heard today. I understand that we have 3 minutes. I did write in to speak on behalf of 3 separate judges that were up for nomination today. I will be brief on the majority of my reason for wanting to be heard today has to do with Judge Jane Grossman. To my sad surprise, she was not questioned at all during the process earlier this morning. I know that there have been many complaints that have been filed against Ms. Jane Grossman since she has been appointed as a judge. I have practiced law for 22.5 years and was recently disbarred without a hearing or any notice that I was being subjected to being put under scrutiny by Judge McCousher in Middletown. I was a solo practitioner and my life, liberty, and property was ripped away from me as a result of Judge McCousher's, Judge Gerard Edelman, and Judge Jane Grossman. I know it sounds unbelievable. It's somewhat surreal to me. I have 40-something clients that are at a loss and in complete shock. Prior to this particular situation, I have never been sanctioned, not even slapped on the hand. I've never lied to the court. I've never lied to anyone in my practice, and I fought hard and long to ensure that none of my clients would ever present a falsity to the court. The acts that Judge Grossman engaged in are blatantly illegal in violation of constitutional rights. It's sad to me, and it's a sad day in this state that the governor of our state has not been provided with the adequate information that he should have had prior to the renomination of Judge Jane Grossman. She has stolen many children from their mothers, from mothers that were fit and stable women until Judge Grossman became involved in their cases. She has treated them in a demeaningful, despicable way. She is rude. She does not allow an opportunity for these litigants to be heard, and she violates the basic constitutional rights that one should be entitled to. These women are not given their right to redress in court. They are not given their rights to bear and raise their children as we all should be entitled to under the laws of our state. This is really a serious situation that's been going on in this state for many years. Judge Grossman has gotten so frivolous with her actions that in September of 2019, a young lady was stabbed 29 times, nearly almost decapitated from Cheshire, Connecticut. Her name, Monica Dominguez. Why do I blame Judge Grossman for partially being part of why this happened? Is because instead of Judge Grossman taking her obligations serious as one should, as a judge, when this young woman went before her with an application for a restraining order, Judge Grossman dismissed the matter based on the husband's representation.
Ms. Kuna, we're well past the 3 minutes, so
Okay.
I appreciate you bringing your concerns about Judge Grossman to our attention. We will certainly take a look at it. All right. Questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from the committee? If not, we appreciate you being with us, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Next up will be Rana Marie Giuliano.
Will not be testifying today.
Okay. Madam Administrator, anyone else from the public sign up to testify?
No.
All right, then I will declare this public hearing closed. I will convene the Judiciary Committee meeting for Friday, February 25th, 2022. We are going to stand in recess. We're going to log off of this link, and I think the members have another one. But before we do that, I know there's going to be a brief Democratic caucus. I don't know if the Republicans are planning to caucus or not, but there will be a very brief Democratic caucus, and we will announce the time to reconvene. All right. With that, we stand in. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, because that just took me a little surprise. I'm going to send no problem. We're a team. I'm going to send a link to my guys. We'll also have a brief caucus. So I think it's the right thing to do, and we'll talk.
All right. So members, look for a link from either Zoe on the Democratic side or Representative Fishbein, and